I think we're just going to go.
Cool.
Hello.
Well, that was good. Crap.
Oh, right, what a little take thing. I thought you were just going to give me a round of applause. Welcome. It's Rich is in charge today. Round of applause, everyone. Welcome to another Amen Brother podcast episode. As you can see, I'm neither black nor fashionable, so John's not with us today. He's currently on his, what would you call it, like world...
I was going to call it sabbatical, but it's not. He is working.
He's literally working and gigging in the... Basically,
that's actually true. He's double working.
He's literally on some like global Southern Hemisphere takeover right now.
Yeah,
Shogun
so
Audio
like
tour.
6 week
thing.
When I saw those dates, I literally just went...
That's disgusting.
Crazy.
Disgusting. And then he's working like his UK 9 to 5 whilst out there remotely. So he's doing like work every night, which is just mental.
Yeah, he said he's got like, I think he's taking like every like Friday off and maybe like a couple extra days here and there, but
still.
Fair play, Big John. We miss you. Hope it's going well. We know it is. It looks like it's been sick. So yeah, you're stuck with me today.
And me.
And Jackie boy, yeah, we'll stuck with me in charge, which is no good for anyone, but here we are.
So self-deprecating.
Yeah, I know. To be fair, I get told off for that as well. I promised myself I wouldn't do that, but it's just my natural go-to.
Too humble, mate.
You're lucky to have me hosting this podcast episode. Here I am.
What a pleasure it is for you all.
At the forefront, where we all know I should have been from day dot.
You sound just like John.
Without basically mimicking John and his head.
Need loads of bravado.
Yeah, but yeah, you've obviously heard his voice in the background, probably actually seen him because we do cameras now, don't we?
Yes, we do.
And I'm wearing, signature hoodie and whatnot. But we have back for the second time on a podcast, Amen Brother podcast favourite, Mr. Workforce.
Thank you for having me.
Hello,
Good
sir.
to be
Welcome.
here. On camera. I had a haircut, especially.
Nice.
Yeah.
How are you? How's things? How's family life?
Family life is a game changer.
Yeah.
For sure, in terms of... everything, creatively, it's a bit of a weird one.
Yeah.
But it does focus the mind. Do you know what I mean?
I definitely know what you mean.
Yeah.
Gives a lot of perspective and kind of makes you realise I have to, someone's reliant on me now. It's a different ball game.
Yeah. I guess I see it sort of like that, but also they're reliant on me to like be good as well. Do you know what I mean? So like it's not just money. Because I reckon we could be like skint, but if I was like happy and healthy and enjoying my work and that, that's the shit I care about the most.
I meant strictly from a health perspective,
sure.
actually.
Yeah.
It like changed my life. It took me a little while because a bit of a unique situation to like how most families start. But once it clicked, it was like, nah, man, I need to be alive, be here, be healthy, be happy for my child.
Also, like, I don't know, just like I want to, it sounds, you have to be slightly selfish and like want to thrive yourself for their benefit. Do you know what I mean? Because I wouldn't want him to grow up and think that I wasn't trying to like put best foot forward. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like my dad had lots of opportunity to do shit when I was a kid, but he didn't do them, or like he didn't go the whole hog.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether he has regrets about that, but he had opportunity to do some interesting other stuff, and he just, for some reason, didn't fully go in. Like, he was at the origins of like Stomp. He was knocking about in Brighton when that was happening, and he just never went for it.
Yeah.
I don't know whether he has regrets, and I don't feel bad for him for that. But I also feel like, wouldn't it be a cool story if he'd just gone for it? I don't know.
Yeah. Not that conversation with him?
Nah, not really. He's very relaxed about all that sort of stuff. He's quite stoic. I don't think he has any regrets.
Yeah. Classic. Our parents' generation.
Yeah.
We're like similar age, aren't we? So
38 in a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Flipping that, you're younger than me. Wow, that makes me feel
Grayer though.
Yeah, but my hairline's
I was
probably
going to say, he's got the
more
hat
than
on.
yours. Yeah,
Hiding it.
literally hiding under the hat.
Yeah. But all good, to be honest.
Good.
Like with everything, peaks and troughs. I think everyone's like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like uniquely positive sometimes about everything that's going on, like music-wise and world-wise, and then I feel uniquely negative about it a lot of other time.
Yeah, I get that from you. We talk occasionally, but you and your social media definitely gives off that vibe as well. And
I guess I just expect a lot of people. I think I expect a lot of myself, and so I try and hold people to that standard, and then hold like the world to that standard. Like I'm too. As you get older, I think you realise that you just don't. I don't want to put up with bullshit that I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Man.
Yeah.
I've just got such a
100.
low tolerance for just bollocks now, to be honest. I know what I enjoy doing. I know what I'm good at doing, and I'm just trying to do that. The things that bother me are like just all the bullshit that gets in the way of that. Do you know what I mean? And so, like, it's weird because people would say, like, if John was here, he'd be calling me a moaner, right? But I think that's because I just honestly...
He's probably worried that we're going to turn this into the moan cast.
No, but that's...
He's hoping Jack's going to bring us out.
To be totally honest with you, like, John's probably right, but honestly, the moaning comes from a place of optimism and wanting better.
Yeah.
It's like, It's like when it's...
100, yeah.
I feel like when people are, like, not working to their best potential or, like, are doing something that feels cheap or, like, whatever. And that's not even about other people, it's just about me. It's but, like, yeah, it's hard because... It is just about standards, and it's about like pushing things forward and things being innovative, and like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what persona. It's hard for me to be objective about what my persona is or what that looks like in public. I think it's just like most of the time I'm just sort of taking the piss out of everything in my own head, and maybe it comes across as sort of moany. But I also do have big ideas about things, obviously, and I think about stuff a lot.
I think people would see you as a pretty politically charged artist within the realms of D&B.
Yeah.
Who actually, you know, will voice certain things where I think certain people avoid that because there's always a backlash and there's always followers dropping off. There's all that kind of head fuck you got to work around. Like, I go through it myself because I've posted like Free Palestine stuff and will continue to use my platform in ways that I like do want to for like my own moral compass and like
this is the other thing about family, children, our time in life is you realise actually if you don't stand on a principle, what the fuck's it all for? And I'm not saying like I'm aware like we don't have like the biggest platforms on earth. We're not talking about like major influence, but we do have influence within the circles we move in, and we do have influence in conversations with people who feel differently or don't want to voice, you know. So I feel like responsibility within that. I am much less like politically in the know in terms of like actual politics, you know, like whatever's going on in Downing Street. Couldn't give a fuck.
Yeah, me.
Because I'm like, as you get older, you realise the influence you can have is at small scale. Like,
they're all the same. Next man comes in. It's very like, you know, there's people really behind that are controlling the puppet strings, and it's all a bit of a.
I think you are right.
Look at
There is an
America,
importance to sort of like being that person who voices their opinion around others, though. Like, even though, like you said, you've got an opportunity. Well, you've got a responsibility by the people that you circulate around, right, to voice your opinion and to. I would argue as well, like, it's not just like political things, but it's like what's socially appropriate and like And so like, I think it's important that people have that around them. I mean, without going too far down the rabbit hole, I've had some conversations with some friends recently where they've like expressed certain things about what's going on politically, and I've sat there and gone, whoa, like, I didn't realise that you were all moving like this and thought this way. Give me 5 minutes just to make some facts to you that may sway your opinion. I'm not here to try and tell you you're wrong, but if I can raise some flags, like,
it's wild at the moment. Like, to be honest, he's not going to watch this, but like, I've fallen out with one of my best mates, oldest friends, over like an argument about Nigel Farage, and it's like, it's crazy. Don't get me wrong, social media, all this stuff, it creates divide. That's what it's, you know, divide and strong opinions. Like, it's a real melting pot. But honestly, there's like two people that are like really close mates of mine. It's so interesting you said that. But really recently, I've just had to be like, you know what? I actually don't know if I can give my energy to this because it's so different from how I feel and my belief system, and the way that it was handled was really poorly on his part, to be perfectly honest.
I think with that though, one of the points that I've got to with it is that before, like a few years ago, if I was on Twitter just like ranting about something, it would usually be an indicator of where I was at, right? I'd probably be like a bit more isolated. And if I was another character, I might have gone another way in terms of who I went to in terms of a voice.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean by that. I don't need to even say it, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And as I've gotten older, you realise actually that division is what's being stoked.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that division between you and your mate, and that division between you and your mate, and I've had it too, obviously. And I think actually it's like that breakdown of that empathy and understanding.
Yeah.
And actually, it gives you an opportunity to sort of go, hang on a minute. And actually, like I've learned a lot of this through the youth work that I do. I spoke about this a little bit last time I was on, I think, with you lot, but you have to really navigate situations that are difficult and that you might not agree with a lot more softness and empathy and compassion.
100%.
Yeah, yeah.
And I struggle with mates because I'm just like I will be blunt. I don't really give a fuck.
It's hard to hold back.
Yeah, but then sometimes you're blunt in the initial.
Yeah.
And there might be a little, because that causes maybe a little fracas around the thing.
Yeah.
And then you're compassionate in the way that you move afterwards and resolve, you know? And I feel like it sometimes gives an opportunity, because I saw this thing, like apparently nowadays we don't know how to fall out and resolve properly. So often people just cut out. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And I feel like actually there's a lot to be gained. There's an opportunity in every one of those little interactions. So if you fall out with someone, there's an opportunity like the next day, if you've slept on it and you feel different, to give them a call and be like, listen, look, I've had a thought, I've had a think about this thing, and maybe move a bit more softly and try and meet them somewhere where in terms of like, you don't have to agree with them. Again, I'm not like therapizing.
No, because I like it. It's super interesting that gone into this,
And also, just quickly to say, if John was here, he would have said some fucking stupid comment already.
He would have shut
it down immediately. Immediately.
I was going to say, like, this is a nice and light intro to the pod, as was to be expected. To be honest, I apologise for my parts playing that.
No.
And then I didn't get back what, like, literally all it would have taken was an apology. And now I'm in a position where I'm not going to go into the intricacies of it, but it was deep. Like when we will talk afterwards, what was going on with me at the time was deep, and there was no consideration and all these things. And I ended up being like, look, I'm sorry to play my part, and then just got aired for like however long. And I'm like, well, until you come back and apologise to me, actually, we've been down this road so many times, and it made me realise I'm always the one that apologises. And it's like that kind of thing that, anyways.
Did I tell you about my first night in the States?
No.
I was in an airport hotel bar with Deggs and Hugh Hardy and a couple of other people, and we were just drinking away, and I got chatting to this American dude at the bar, and we were talking for ages. He was asking me about Brexit, and I was saying to him how it created a load of divides in people's families and friendship groups and stuff like that. And I said it was an unfortunate thing, because ultimately, for whatever reason, people align with a certain way, like a point of view or a certain stance on things, but that stance can change day by day, right? Because it's all situational, it's all based on taste, whatever we're talking about.
It's in flux all the time.
Yeah, it's in flux, and so at the very least, we should be patient with one another and give each other the benefit of the doubt, because people's opinions can change day by day. And then, like 20 minutes after having this long chat with this dude, I found out he voted for Trump, and I was like, oh shit, I've got to practice what I preach and sort of not jump down his throat and have a conversation with him. And it was quite interesting, because he was very one way about kids being taught about sort of sexual orientation and multiple genders and things like this, and he was very much against that. And I had a long conversation with him, which ultimately brought him round. But it brought him round to at least agreeing with me there and then. I don't know whether it changed his life.
That's nice.
Or changed his stance on it for life. But
I think this is what, in a roundabout way, like I don't really care what people think about my opinions that I share, or like taking a position on something, but there's influence there, whether you like it or not. And also and I don't mean that in the sense that people should look to me for their fucking political views, because that shouldn't happen, but maybe there's space for a conversation to be had that wouldn't otherwise be had, you know? I feel like there's a lot of toxicity in the music industry. Everyone knows that. There's no HR department. That's like my new buzz fucking phrase. There's no HR department, so like people behaving shitty don't get kicked out and don't get sacked. In some cases they get fucking protected, you know? So I just think, I don't think it causes... I mean, maybe there was a period where I felt, and it was maybe just like a created thing, but I felt ostracised slightly, in the sense that I felt like people were sort of pussyfooting around certain things because they thought that I was going to like shut them down or have them cancelled or some shit, you know. But like, I don't know. Some of my peers who I get along with the best have very different opinions to me about stuff.
Yeah.
But we have really long and respectful conversations about it, you know?
I feel like that sounds like a Twitter debate that John would have been involved in. He's always like, talking about some mad beef that's going on Twitter between like D&B artists.
No, I wouldn't say I've had a beef. Yeah. The one thing I do find difficult about drum and bass, quote unquote, is like it's quite institutional, isn't it? In the sense that like, and this I keep saying that it's like being a flat earther in the sense that you have to swallow the whole orthodoxy, but if you challenge it, you get kicked out straight away. Like, if you start going, oh, if you look through this telescope, there is a curve to the Earth. They go, no, mate, off you go, out you go. Do you know what I mean? Like if you start trying to like challenge orthodoxy, where it used to be that the challenging orthodoxy and the punk aspect of drum and bass used to be baked in. And it used to be like, who can come up with the best new sounding shit like 20 years ago? I know we're talking 20 years ago. And now it's like, who can make the stuff that sounds the most like this other thing?
Yeah.
And I just think I think there's a lot of reasons for that, but there's not much room for like innovation, it doesn't seem. It feels like innovation is almost slightly shunned. And I think that's more like cultural than specific to drum and bass.
Yeah. I noticed that. Sorry, that was an improper way of starting my sentence. I completely agree with you, and there's a handful of artists that like you hold out hope for. Yeah. I do at least that they'll one day at least write an album. Yeah. Because for me, I'm like that's where every producer, regardless of which label it's coming out on and how you're going to release it, that's where a producer should have the creative flexibility to even those that are really good at not conforming to like writing what's popular or writing. Like, and actually are kind of mold breakers. Yeah. That's the best place you're going to hear that example of mold breaking.
Yeah, right? And for the labels to encourage that.
Exactly, yeah.
I feel like, first of all, like, the album format is like, I was just watching a couple of little clips on the way up here, and I saw this one that RNS had posted of Beyonce talking about singles and albums, and you just listen to it, you're like, it's spot on. She's sort of saying like labels just want a quick single that people ingest and then on to the next. Yeah. And also that cultivates this way of consumers and listeners engaging with what you're making. And so if you're like being conditioned to accept lesser standard, then you by the time something actually complex comes out, you might not have the faculty to fucking deal with it. You know, all the time to like get invested and listen to a whole record. You know, you might just be like, I'm going to listen to this record that's 2.5 minutes and that's it, and then on to my next 2.5 minute record.
It's very true.
That connection between fan and transient fan and then producer, you know, with everything that's gone on in terms of DSPs and stuff, it's getting more and more difficult because obviously the data is gate-kept by all those platforms too. So if you can't cultivate those relationships directly, you're kind of a bit stuck because that metric, all the metrics on Spotify, like they're great and everything. And obviously if you're getting millions of streams, you are earning. So like as a platform, like I really don't have a problem with it in terms of like the model. What I do have a problem with is obviously all the other shit that they do, like the fake bands, padding out playlists of AI, all that kind of shit. Yeah, I have a big problem with that. But also, you
don't have a problem with the payment structure?
Nah, not at all.
Really?
Not at all.
We've got to remember what the alternative was, though, man.
No, but
the alternative was like all of that album was just going to be all of that
free.
Music was just going to be free. It was going to be illegally downloaded.
John,
it was going to be accessible everywhere.
John's not even here.
And we got to remember, people would sit for hours on their computers every evening using LimeWire to illegally download music. Right? Imagine if LimeWire existed in the smartphone era. We'd be fucked, mate. We'd be cooked. People would just download your music instantly, and you wouldn't get anything for it. And we would have all given up 10 years ago. So the fact that there's a sibilant of finance being moved around is enough.
We're of a generation that thinks of it as like, you listen to my thing, you give me money. Right?
Yeah.
Where that transactional way of thinking with music or around music isn't quite the same anymore in the sense that, and this is the model, this is the method I always use to explain this thing to people to make them think differently. If your tune is played on Radio 1 and 1 million people hear it, you get 70 quid. If 1 million people stream your tune on Spotify, you get $2,000. So work it out that way. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I know someone is just reproducing your record on the radio and paying you 70 quid on Radio 1, right? But then that's still 1 million sets of ears.
Spotify's kind of just the same thing.
If you think about it,
another platform not, like radio, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's not the same as there's a thing I want, I buy it. It's there's a thing I want and I listen to it, but also it gets involved in all these playlists, algorithmic stuff that feeds it to people.
It's an interesting take. I do think it could be doing more to pay artists.
Oh yeah, they're the worst.
You're not like
they're the worst in terms of their business structure compared to like a Tidal or YouTube.
Yeah.
And all the AI shit is just going to fuck things up really bad. and the fact that they're paying like session musicians, creating these fake bands with fake stories, and just, you know, buying these recordings of people for next to nothing, padding out playlists so they don't have to pay real artists a royalty. So it's,
after like what you just said, why did you decide to make an album?
I didn't really.
Okay.
It just kind of like, after setting, I had a really long time where I just couldn't, I was really struggling, like really, really struggling, because I put a lot into that record, and then, just like, I just put a lot into it, basically, is the long and
Was that
short.
2001?
I finished it then, and then it came out in 2022.
2001, 2021.
Sorry, you literally didn't even question it because you knew he meant 2021.
Yeah.
Also, what number album is this? 5.
No, it's
What do you mean?
2 as well.
For you?
Well, I did.
I know
This isn't really. I wouldn't even call this an album. It's just an LP. It's like 8 tracks.
Okay.
Yeah, so I did Late Night Soundtrack, which was like 12.
Yeah, but you released that as 2
They were
separate.
EPs,
Well, they were like 3 EPs that formed an LP.
Yeah, because this is what I actually wanted to ask you. So, how many albums do you consider yourself having done if you include Spectra Soul? Because obviously, Your Moves as well was
Spectra Soul did 3.
3. I know Spectra Soul. Yeah.
Your Moves was only 6 tunes, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was like a long
I
EP.
wouldn't call it an album. I think it was just listed as that on Spotify because it was more than
The way
4.
it is listed is interesting. Yeah. Same with Late Night Soundtracks, then it becomes one entity after the 2 releases.
That was sort of, but that was sort of like an album in progress, but releasing each bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I hadn't written all of it and then went, that's the album. I did 4, 4, 4. But I knew that I was writing it with that intention.
Because I would have said this is your 5th album. Actual like album project.
I don't class this one as an album.
Really?
It's more like I say an LP and an album are different. Like I think an LP is more, it's like a collection of tunes that don't quite make an album, but that can fit under a similar banner. You know,
because wasn't an album back in the day defined by like being like longer than like 80 minutes of music
I don't
or
know,
something,
actually.
wasn't it? I
Don't
swear
know.
it was something like that. Back
I
in
would
the day, I'm
argue
not
that
sure.
everybody would argue a different.
Yeah, it's
reason
weird,
for
isn't it?
what
What's the
defines
actual?
it, because
Get us in the comments.
Because from a vinyl formatting
Warming
front
it,
of
lads.
things, this is where it all comes into
Super warming
minutes
it.
and number of records as well, and in the mix, the difference between single, EP, LP, album, all that malarkey.
Yeah.
I think it's just however
definitely
the fuck you
evolved
dress
over
things up,
time.
really,
I also
innit?
think it's like how you present it. So like,
Yeah.
I don't think that this Nothing is Sacred project is like something that you would stick on and listen from start to end necessarily. In the way that I made like
Set and setting.
Set and setting. Whereas Late Night Soundtrack again, I'd say is an LP, even though it's 12. It's like a collection of tunes, and it's written, and it's not necessarily written to like stick on and listen all the way through. You know.
Yeah.
Whereas all the Spectra Soul albums were written to be press play.
out.
100%.
Listen all the way through.
Yeah.
Like Delay No
So-
More, I think that's like it's
Yeah.
a huge influencer, like to me and Harry, to why we write albums in that same way. Well, that's sort of like, at least what we try to do. But I've always wanted to do like a sort of like a Calibre shelf life style. Here's just a load of dubs and tunes that we've written over the last 10 years that we really like, but they've just never really worked as part of a wider project. It's just almost like a little mixtape thing, just throw it out.
Yeah, I think part of the lesson I learned from Set and Setting, more so than I've ever learned from another album, is to not. It's not to not invest as much of yourself in it, because I invested a lot of myself in Set and Setting, but it's also to like. Because you still have to invest yourself in it for it to be good. But what I mean is to not overthink. To just be like, these lot work together. They're cool.
Yeah.
And if you want to make some little interludes and stuff, I'm into all of that. You know what I am, like stuff at the end of a tune, just like a little bit that you've listened to on a podcast that you think, oh, that's really cool, I'm going to stick that in. That's all. That's great, and it adds richness and all that sort of shit. But with this one, it was more just like, it wasn't thought of in that way. It was just like, these are the best tunes I have now.
Right.
And I'm not going to think too much about whether there's a thread through all of them, because it's really hard to do that as a producer. You can never be objective. It's always everybody else goes, I knew that was one of your tunes. You go, really? I don't think it sounds like one of mine. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, I didn't really consider it that way. It was more just like, I knew I had some good music here, and also, to be honest, again, post Set and Setting, it was the first lot of stuff that I got excited about, because I just hadn't been able to like click and write anything.
Yeah.
I just really struggled, literally for like, I don't know. I finished it in 2021, and we're early 2025 now, so like I had a good couple of years there. I was really, really struggling to like get started, and I was really prolific before. I used to write like during COVID, I was writing 2 or 3 tunes a week, easy, and they'd be done like. Because there's no gigs at the weekend, no other commitments. I literally just go in,
You needed your fix of
Yeah.
good drum and
But
bass.
also no
almost
pressure.
like-
No pressure, man. And no clubs, you know. I was just,
That was it. Nowhere. It wasn't about club bangers. It was actually just about writing good music again.
And I had to just remind myself that, you know, I'm having to remind myself of that now. Like, I'm trying to give much less thought to, like, mix downs and production, all this kind of shit. Because I just trust myself to know that, like, if I've written something and I think it sounds sonically all right, it probably does. And not to, like, because usually when you're going, oh, I need to mix this and do that and do the other, you're just that's just a barrier you're putting in for yourself. It's like a protection ego barrier where you're saying, oh, I can't release this now because I need to do this.
Yep.
Where actually it's just like, no one's going to know that you've done anything there.
Yeah, very true.
It's quite interesting that you ended up like releasing a project like this after what you said previously about, like, you know, the music scene not really tailoring itself towards albums and stuff. And even though it sounds like it wasn't really premeditated, you kind of landed in a place that was like, this is kind of perfect for what's, you know, what people expect. And
I think it's because if I don't write albums, if I don't do longer projects, there's never a place for the weirder tunes that I love to make.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, my favourite tunes aren't usually the ones that people love. They're the little weird B-side ones that...
Yeah.
You know.
What's your favourite tune you've ever made?
Workforce, probably like this tune I made called... what's it called again? It's got like a little David Hayes sample before the drop. Setting Traps.
Oh, yeah.
It's like it's probably my favourite tune I've ever made. It was just... a big reason.
That was one of the first, like, one or two EPs that came out.
Exactly. So a lot of
jungly, snappy thing.
Yeah, sort of. It's all made on the Electron. I made it on the Analog 4, like most of it, just like out the box. The rhythm and the Analog 4 together. I think a lot of the reason why I like certain tunes is usually the relationship that I build with them while I'm making them. It's rarely about how good it is. Like the tunes of mine that have been popular or successful, they're rarely the ones that I love the most, because it's usually like I just build like a little relationship with them while I'm making them, and if they come out smooth and easy and I enjoy making them, they're usually my favourites. Yeah. Whereas the ones like that require a lot of care and attention, or like have required a lot of work to get them where they are, I struggle with those a bit more.
In terms of writing, how do you find it easier or more difficult now that you're writing? Well, obviously you had that period where you weren't. Did you ever have that when you were writing with David Spectra Soul?
No, because there would always be someone else in the room, and their energy wouldn't necessarily match. So there's pitfalls, there's pros and cons to like being in a duo, right? So you know, on certain days, if you're feeling low, you get picked up, and on certain days, if they're feeling low, you pick them up, and you can sort of even out the dynamics a bit. And also, you don't need A&R so much, because you've just got another person with taste you respect in the room going, do you know what, this is a good one. So there's in the earlier Workforce days, I was like, fuck me, this is all upside, I love this. And then the more I've gone, you go, actually, this is hard. Like sometimes
when we had you on, like
a couple of years ago,
you definitely were in a space of like being really, really happy,
on fire.
And like, it's like it makes everything like quite a lot easier and stuff. You obviously like
I still feel a lot of that, but then you know, I think this is just my nature, and it's like it speaks to what I said earlier about like always wanting better and always wanting more and the next thing. It's like it serves you to a point, and then at a certain point it's unhealthy, and it's like you need to chill the fuck out at this point, you know. So you get to a point where you're like, this is all great and it's all ticking over and it's better than it was when there was two of us, but now I'm doing label stuff. So I've signed a bunch of music to the label. I've got Azzy FM, like, you know, he sends all his music to me, so I'm dealing with that. Then I'm doing all the artwork and the animation for everything on the label.
Sick.
I do animation for two other labels within drum and bass. I do the youth work, and then I'm trying to write my own music and do all the stuff that comes with that, and then DJ, do gigs. So literally, I was on the phone today to someone, and I was like, and then my phone, like someone else was trying to call me at the same time, and I was like, there's someone trying to pull me this way, and then that way, and then I was getting an email that's about something else. I'm not even that busy, but it's just like within the context of everything, it's like I feel like I'm doing everything at like 60% rather than everything at like 80 to 100%.
Yeah.
And I feel like I could just do...
Absolutely relate to that, man. Yeah.
And it's like, there's just, if you had more hours in the day or help... Yeah, that's what I mean. I can't get out of I struggle to get out of the house before like 10 a.m. And then she'll be texting me at like 4 or 5-ish going, do you know what time you're going to be back? And I'm like, fuck. You know?
Yeah.
So you do have to get quite good at like making the best of like 4 hours.
Yeah, 4 or 5 hour workday instead of an
I can't do it, but I struggle with that.
Creativity.
I need clear road ahead of me often. Like if I've got a week, like last week was half term, so there was no youth work on, but I was in bed all week ill, and I was like screwing, because actually it means, because my youth work's only like 5 till 7 in the evening, and I love it, and it does give me like, it's literally gives me vitality in life, because it's just a change of speed. And yeah, it's just like it scratches that itch, right, for like feeling like you're doing something good. But it wasn't on, and it meant I had clear road ahead of me the whole week. So I could have literally gone in every day, maybe like 10 till 6, and got loads done. And I did have loads to do. The to-do list is huge, but it's just, I just was in bed. And then this week I've just got loads of little things in the diary that are just fucking me up, and it means you're behind constantly and doing everything at like half measures, you know?
I have to try and approach it like week by week sometimes. I'm like, okay, I've got those 3 things in the evening. I need to manage that. And then I'll think about the week after when I've done those bits and pieces. Like,
I've just got this really bad tendency of like trying to look at all of it and trying to sort all of it in once, rather than just going, okay, just pick those 3 important things and do them. What I tend to do is like, I'll go to the studio and I'll have this big to-do list. But what I'll do instead is start just going through drum breaks and go, oh, that one sounds nice. Let's spend the whole day fucking with that one and making that sound lovely. And then you've not done any of the things you were supposed to do. Like, yeah, I've just got a really bad habit for that, is, just writing more music when I shouldn't, when I should be either finishing some other stuff or finishing other music. It's just, yeah. But that, I guess that's just, you have to get comfortable with that.
We're getting old, mate.
And just be all right with imperfection. But then what I struggle with that is that I want to hold myself to a high standard and do everything to a high standard.
Yeah.
So when it feels like sometimes things are slipping through the cracks or not being done as well as they could be, that can fuck me up, like in terms of sending me down and be like, it's all too much, just everybody leave me alone.
Yeah.
It can be overwhelming.
Yeah. You get overwhelmed by like the amount of cool projects that you are doing, that you can't just go in and do one. You have to. I'm just thinking about all of them all the time.
You have to juggle 4 different things. Yeah, I can absolutely relate to that. Like Harry's very good at getting in the room and wanting to start a new idea, whereas to a degree, apart from when we're like. We're like, right, album mode. We've decided we're going to write an album. We need to idea create.
Yeah.
Apart from then, I struggle to sort of juggle more than like 5 or 6 ideas.
Yeah.
It's the struggling to sort of embrace the idea of exploring so many different creative ideas, and like I can't even begin to think about what I'd want to do to something because. Yeah. There's so many other different things. Yeah, it just steers me off in different directions.
I think that actually does speak to the point about why albums exist also. Or like, I don't know, not even an album, just a project. If you say I'm writing an album, you've got an end goal in sight there, and that can sometimes focus the mind, which is probably why I did this in answer to your earlier question. It's literally just like, I've got a load of records and like 2 or 3 of them I think are amazing, and some of them are not like going to be big hitters, but they're ones that I enjoyed making. So let's just put them together and see what we get, and just not overthinking it in the sense of because I am one for over like rationalizing or putting some like extra like context around an album, like a narrative or like setting. I just went to fucking town with all the shit, like all of the story around it. It took me ages because I knew what I was doing. I knew exactly what I was doing and what I wanted to say and what it was about. But then I was like, well, how do I get that message across? And then that was part of the thing afterwards. I was like, does it matter?
Yes.
Yeah, but then look at like a Calibre record. He just puts it out with no explanation, barely a press release.
I get it, but, Specs are my favourite. You're literally like my favourite. There's a reason, and the reason is because of exactly what you just said then.
All the extra context.
Mate, like the sample game is mad. The storytelling through samples is mad. Like you touched upon it a minute ago. And like, again, in this project, you've got, those textbook thought-provoking samples that like, I'm like wheeling up the sample and I'm like, where's this from? Because I swear, how they see it,
Rick Rubin.
But what?
It's Rick Rubin.
And it features in setting as well, no?
Maybe.
There's a similar, it had a similar vibe to setting.
Maybe.
But I could be wrong.
So maybe I can probably find out. I've got a Google Doc with all of them written in.
But the story through Setting, it was interesting because it felt like that track to me was a bit of almost continuation. It comes in early,
Yeah.
and then there's some other ones later on. So like, tell us about your sample game. Like,
I think with stuff like that, it's literally just whatever I'm listening to outside of music. If I hear something that interests me or like is a provocative or like a moment in like a podcast or a conversation that I've been listening to, it'll go in.
Yeah.
Actually, that's the other thing with saying. The reason why I felt drained afterwards is because I've loved the topic and I was so engrossed in all the shit surrounding it, like all the conversations around psychedelics, around mental health, and around like this grand unified theory around mental health discovered through psychedelics and MDMA therapy, all this shit, right? Mm-hmm. As soon as I closed the book on that project, I was like, "Fuck! I can't use any of them samples anymore. There's no reason for me to listen to those podcasts or be interested in that subject anymore."
Yeah,
you got to find a new. I'm not. I would struggle to go back to that same well again and just start rehashing that sort of vibe.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? So like that's in the sense that I feel like an expectation and a pressure to sort of not reinvent, but just not to try not to tread those boards again in terms of subject matter. And I think this speaks to what we were talking about earlier in terms of like orthodoxy of drum and bass. I think once you have a sound, there's an expectation, and sometimes I feel very resistant against that in the sense that I don't want to be held in this spot by people's perception of what it should be. Yeah, I feel like there's a tension there, and that's part of the reason why Spectral changed and ended. Actually, it's just I was just like, I don't want to turn up and people expect us to just play an hour of Liquid. Just not up for it. Like I just want to be able to do what my gut tells me to do what they don't want. You know, so even now I turn up to gigs and sometimes I feel like I would play really differently if I was being really indulgent. But I know it would have a very different impact to what's going on in the room right now.
Oh, it's so
it's really difficult because.
But you still do it in parts.
So I think you have to have moments where you're testing the people that are listening to what you're doing. Yeah. In the sense of trying to build tension in the room, and you can build tension in the room by playing a weird record, right? And hoping that everyone doesn't fuck off, and that maybe you convert a small percentage of who's left in the room, and then you just because I've had it a couple of times where I've consciously, there's a few tunes I know that if I play them, they're going to build tension in the room because they've got a big breakdown or they've got like a moment where it goes a bit weird. Yeah. And then people are going to be stood there going, "What the fuck is going on here?" Yeah. Or this breakdown's too long, or he's not mixed in another tune. And then suddenly you can just release with some other tune, and then the room goes mental. Yeah. So you only have to play like one. For me, I'm like, I only really need to play one or two of those big tunes in a set, but just know how to like curate them in and build tension and have release.
The club scene needs more of this right now. Like facts. Like no one's going to disagree, apart from maybe like the people that are running the like bigger shows and the kids that have no interest and just want to hear big bangers. Fine. But there's a significant portion of people that, and I think there's going to be a filter down where there's more room for that, because you're better than me, because I'm just unapologetically like, nah. Like my Call FM show, the only dubs I've played in my first 3 shows when I was just there on my own have been my own, and literally the rest of the time I'm just playing old school music because I'm like, I just want to play music that I really like. Don't get me wrong, it's different in a club setting. Yeah. But like, I still always
club setting, especially.
There's always old school tunes in my sets. Like I think
there's more and more opportunity for people, for the DJs in the room to dictate, especially in a club setting. Because where the fuck are these people going? Yeah, there ain't no 3rd, 4th, 5th stage. Do you know what I mean? And people have paid money to come out. Like, and if it's one breakdown every 3 or 4 tunes, like that might be a bit weird. Like, I don't think I've ever heard a DJ mid-set play something a bit weird and I've gone, "Oh, this is a bit weird, I'm leaving." I've gone, "Oh, this is a bit weird." It's caught my attention. If anything, it's made me pay attention. You know what I mean? It's locked me in a little bit more. Like, and I think that breakaway moment in sets is something that people should be doing. Well, we could and can all be doing more of.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because I think people don't want to have it prescribed to them or have you tell them like how they should enjoy themselves. So I think,
of course,
I think it's tricky. Like, I agree with you in the sense that in a club setting, there's more capacity or space to, you know, try some stuff out. But I think there is also this tendency of DJs and producer DJs nowadays to play what they think people want to hear rather than playing what they want to play, and hoping to bring people along with them. And I think the word, again, this doesn't come from me as like someone who does this religiously, or I just try to be, and I've said this to like people before, I think we all just need to be a bit braver in terms of like what we make, what we play, how we arrange our music, you know, like not we should be cultivating the alternative and cultivating like this speaks to what I was saying earlier about like the dumbing down of culture and how we've been conditioned to like accept lower standard shit and slop basically, right?
Yeah.
And not necessarily. I saw this video earlier where this guy said he started distrusting people who said that they found that something was boring, because he was going, well, is it boring, or you just got the attention span of a goldfish? You know, like, is this thing, you know, like a lot of people would, I always say to people, oh, you should watch The Wire, it's amazing. And then, but people that are young, they put it on and go, it's too slow, don't understand what's going on. And it's like this kind of, and I'm like it too, like my relationship to music and to art and to TV and film and stuff has definitely changed with how everything is, you know. I'm no different. I'm still a dopamine fiend in terms of like my phone and in terms of wanting to watch something that gives me gratification on telly. But I do just find myself, I want to put something on that's like good but not too involved now.
Yeah.
And I've got this like list of shit that I want to watch. There's like a pressure almost, because there is so much amazing stuff.
So much stuff.
And lots of stuff that's kind of like very watchable.
I find myself, honestly, my missus gets really pissed off with me because we'll put something Netflix on and I'll just be like, this is one of them textbook series that just like got commissioned by Netflix, and everyone's like, this is fucking sick, and it's actually just rubbish, but it's just like mad drama, and it like you said, the dopamine hit, that hits you with that dopamine hit, and I'm just sitting there going, this is shit, like, and I'm like, I'm not having it, and she just like, fuck off, like, don't even watch this with me then.
I saw a thing earlier where it was like something about Netflix executives telling screenwriters and scriptwriters to write in what the characters are saying, what they're doing, so that if you're not fully engaged with what's going on, you still know what's going on. Honestly, seriously, I don't know how legit it was. It was like, it was probably in this same video. I think the person like put a screen grab up, and it said something like, yeah, like the scriptwriters had been told that the people that are doing shit on screen have to say what they're doing, so that if you're just like that, you can still follow it. Yeah. You don't lose track. How wild
that is the thing though, isn't it? 2 screens as well. Because you're literally on your phone whilst you're watching the TV, although I'm not really...
where's that actress from? What's she in again? Yeah, she's in that other thing, I
try to avoid that. That's another thing I have a go at my missus. I'm like, your phone's going in the sin bin while we watch this.
My missus always said, because I'm a terrible cynic, but like, if something's on about like, we'll be watching like some true crime documentary, and during the true crime documentary, it sort of shows all the ugly side of like American policing, American healthcare, and my catchphrase, she always rinses me for it, is, it's a sickness. Like these Americans, they're all sick. Like they're the American psychology. It's a sickness, and she always rinses me for it.
I rate it
because I can't help it. I just go, they're sick. These Americans, they're just, you know, how do they put up with this? It's a sickness. Like guns, fucking healthcare.
$380 for $380 just to have an ambulance called and shit like that.
Yeah, it's fucked. Yeah.
Poison food.
Yeah, honestly, like this is. I'm not coming on to try and like fight my corner here, but I honestly, I know that I'm of a certain age, and I know that when I came through into drum and bass, I was one of the youngest. I was like 2006. I was 19. I had my first release when I was 19, and everyone else was like mid-20s, late 20s, and some of them were like 30 odd. And so I was always considered this kid, and now I'm not that, obviously.
You're middle school.
Yeah. So I'm aware, like, you know, I've changed, things change. It's, you know, so there is a certain, like, I wouldn't say it's bitter, but I think it's like an awareness around my tolerance for shit has changed rather than the shit, if that makes sense. So I'm not totally just like one of these bitter old people who just goes, oh, it's better in my day, blah, blah, blah. I'm totally aware that I've changed loads.
It's funny, isn't it? Because like being middle school, we dealt with that when we were coming through, where you'd have the like older bods on the moan, and then you become friends with them, and then all of a sudden, I'm now that guy, and it's like, oh, it's like a whole cycle you almost go through.
I think I remember back to like when I was coming through, and in like 2008-9 time, we used to go to parties at Shogun at the end parties, and Ed used to play all sorts of stuff, and everyone used to fucking like love it. Like, and looking back, thinking about it, the music, some of the music, like it was mostly Full Cycle or Dillinger records, which by today's standards were credible, but at the time were quite wobbly, right? And we didn't give a fuck, even though I was really principled and cared about my music and cared about like artistry and like the deeper stuff. In the club, it didn't matter because it was the way he was playing it. And you know, it was just like, yeah. But now, I guess, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I guess you care less as a young person, even though you have your principles. I had my principles about music. It wasn't stuff that I would play, but you'd still be down the front with like all the other DJs that had played that night and some of the MCs dancing to records that you'd never play. And I couldn't imagine myself doing that now.
No.
You know, like I couldn't imagine going to like a jump up rave and and finding any joy in it.
If I think about the jump up that I was into when I was like 18 years old, as like, you know, when like having listened to it since I was like 11, it was like jungle D&B, and then like jump up in like the like early 2000s. Some of it was sick.
Really good, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the difference for me.
But then, do we give it too much credence because we were there and we didn't care? Do you see what I'm getting at?
I do, and it's interesting, potentially, but I also think, you know what you said about how now everyone's concentrated on making this same thing, and it's just a rinse and repeat scenario. Is it just like where's the innovation? And back then, Jump Up was innovative, because it didn't exist prior to it.
I mean, innovation's not rewarded now, so
subgenres was spawned. Liquid became a thing. It went off into a few subgenres. Now there's like, you know, hundreds of them. Yeah. But in the early stage, those subgenres were just innovations of D&B.
I think there's a lot of factors working against people that are trying to push the envelope a bit. You know, everything that's going on culture-wise in the UK. All the social media stuff we talked about, it's and I've spent the first part of this year trying to find like solutions that will work just in my specific what I'm doing. I'm trying to find little solutions about like, you know, like the algorithm bullshit, like actually getting to the people who like your music. How are we going to do that? How do you do an audit of where your fans are and find them, and then how do you use that information to help promoters so that they're not taking all the risk? So you're then being able to go to Rich in Manchester, for example, and say, look, Rich, like, you don't have to pay me a fee. We'll just take it. I'll do a door split because I reckon I've got this many people in Manchester who I can bring along to the show, and I'm going to be involved in the promotion. So it's not all on you, blah, blah, blah. So you can be helping, whether there's a mechanism through which you can actually work out where your fans are, mobilise them, get them to shows. But also, there's another part of me that...
Interesting idea, that.
Well, yeah, I think it's been going on for too long where the promoter books you and then you just leave it to them to deal with it.
There's a lot of risk put on the promoter. Why is there no independent promoters about? Yeah. It's a big question at the moment. I've been talking with Luke at SB about it quite a lot, talking about like reducing our fee, you know, for like a local promoter in order to just have an underground drum and bass night that's in an intimate club that's going to be more of a vibe than the big shows often.
There's two aspects to this for me. One of them is the market just deciding that they don't want to go and stand in a dark room anymore? Do they want something else? I'm not saying that's true or it's not true, but it's definitely something to consider. With all the clubs that are shutting down, there's lots of stuff going on. People are skint.
Even outside of like D&B.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. People are skint. That's one aspect of it. But if they had all the money in the world, would they be going to a dark room now? That's an interesting one. We'll never really know, I don't think. I think the appetite from consumers is for something that they can bank on. So like Printworks, people are happy to spend whatever the cost of a ticket is for Printworks because they know what they're going to get. They go in, they're going to get mental production, mad sound, and probably a really good lineup, right? Yeah. Whereas they'd probably rather spend that than maybe like a tenner to go to like a small dark club with a reasonably good sound system. I think
'Cause
culturally
ticket price
things are
isn't
moving.
the problem.
I
I think
get-
it's the taxi, it's the drink money, it's the all of that malarkey that goes with it. It's like I'd
Yeah, so
rather
you want a banker.
Yeah, exactly. I'd rather have a really big blowout night
But also,
and spend all that money.
Like, people have got their fucking phones in the air. They want to come away with something that looks spectacular. And I'm not saying, I don't want to be too prescriptive with that, because I think that doesn't help either. It's too much,
Yeah.
I'll put your phone away. Like, ideally, I would like to be in a club where people are like communing around the music.
Yeah.
Where
You
they're
want to
meeting on
find
the dance
those
floor.
that actually like the music rather than people that like the aesthetic of the music.
Yeah, but I equally
clubbing.
think there is an appetite, and potentially in the future, with how the cost of this technology and with all the new technology that's coming in, is going to make it very cost effective and easier to provide something different, like an immersive experience. So
Yeah.
I've been, this is something I've been looking into with the motion I do, but like, if they don't want to go to a dark club, what can bring them back?
Yeah.
Do you not think?
We can have to talk about this afterwards.
I agree with you to a certain extent, but I also think that these kids that have come through COVID and stuff are getting older. And I remember when I got older, and all of a sudden, the thing you did when you were 18, 19, 20, 21, at 25, that's not so cool anymore. So if you're still wanting to go out, I have hope that things come full circle, and actually that it becomes cool to go back to a dark room where there isn't a visual aesthetic, and actually like, I'm going to put my phone away and get lost in the music. Maybe I'm, mad, but I do kind of cling on to just the hope that, that these cycles do happen, and culture does evolve, but it also does, like, things become retro, and we do move in cycles.
Yeah.
And I think my hope is for, if everybody who wants that to become a reality and wants to play in those, like, wants to go to play a Phonox as often as they possibly can, or, smaller clubs in London, realistically, what can we do to help facilitate that local promoter that's going to put it on, get a bunch of his friends to come, and then actually like start a movement that means people are like, actually, this is a way I had a way better night in that little club than I did lost in the sea of.
It's reminding people that you have to I have said this already, but to like commune around the idea and the music. So you're building community. And you're building everyone's participation in the experience. So I don't know even if it has gone awry, because there's so many. The thing is, there's so many variables here that it's hard to know exactly why people's behaviour has changed, right? In terms of the things we've got against us. So like post-COVID, that gap of 18-year-olds who never went clubbing, the cost of running a club being extortionate now, no one having any money in their pocket to actually go and do shit.
Yeah.
But also, like, I've been talking with someone about this idea of doing matinee shows for, like, people that are, like, 30 plus.
Yeah.
So, like, you do one show that's from, like, 7 till 12.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you do one that's 12 till 5. And it's literally just rinse and repeat. Same lineup.
Yeah.
But then you have one set of people who come who are quite happy to leave.
Should be cutting this, mate. Otherwise, someone's going to go. Jack,
No, I mean, I know
idea.
people
Good
do
idea.
it. Do it. Like,
Yeah.
everyone's coming down anyway, so just do 2.
Yeah.
You know,
It's a really good
Then you
idea.
can afford to do it in a
All
smaller
those
place as well. You don't have to
Yeah.
worry about, like, if you've got the scope to sell 1,000 tickets, you don't have to worry about doing it at a 1,000 cap venue. You can do it at 500 and do 2 separate events.
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly, all these ideas are fantastic, because I've been saying to a couple of like independent promoters that have started up. I got booked for this one, Concept Sounds, literally last month. Was sick in like 93 feet east in London. Was a proper vibe. No phones, little community, like a bunch of independent promoters in London, like the Hexagon lot. Everyone like turned up. It was like, I haven't seen you for ages. It was mad, and that was what I think really charged me up and gave me hope. And I think there's a number of different ideas that can be incorporated into this. Everything that we're talking about now has a part to play. And I just think, it just needs, there could be a little revolution afoot, or at least I don't know, not revolution, let's say, but
It's a difficult one, because I'm not really like, no one would call me like a free market guy in terms of, you know, the way the world works. But it's horrible to think about it this way, but if people are deciding that they don't want to go to clubs anymore, and that's the reason that clubs are shutting down, it's hard to argue against that in terms of like people's behaviour. And I'm not saying, and the motivations behind that could literally just be they've got no money, you know. So that could be solved by people just having more money in their pocket, and then suddenly clubs are busy on the weekend. You know, people are willing to take a £10 punt on a lineup. They don't really know everybody on it. Back in the day, like we trust promoters.
Yeah.
We trust you go. This promoter's wicked. They book really good lineups.
Yeah.
I miss it, man. Like I really miss it, and it's something that I think there are so many people listening that really, really won't get it. But it really wasn't that long ago. It was like 10 years ago, where you didn't even need to trust a promoter. You just needed to trust a friend who went. I went to this drum and bass event 4 months ago, and it was sick. It's £8. Do you want to come?
Yeah.
And like you'd be in the pub on a Friday night, and you'd be like, "Fuck it, let's go."
Yeah, and
even if you're going to be in there for 2 hours,
Yeah,
but you still have a great time.
Lots and lots has changed, though, hasn't it? Like culturally and. You know, people are living much healthily.
Yeah, it's true.
Remember, we had a massive discussion last time I was on about like,
Yeah.
the demise of people taking loads of drugs in a drum and bass club. And again, to reiterate, not advocating that, but
I am.
meeting on the dance floor and having an experience where you're like that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying go and get off your nut, but like.
For a lot of people, it changes.
Sober. You can do this sober if you allow yourself to.
Yeah.
And again. I think being prescriptive is no good because people don't like to be told, and I wouldn't be like to be told. And again, this comes back to like being aware of where you are positionally and age-wise, right? So not being bitter, because people used to go, "Oh, back in my day, I did this."
Yeah.
We're
not quite there yet. Give it 10 years.
I'm in danger of sounding like that, but that sort of hedonism, and losing yourself on a dance floor for whatever reason has changed, hasn't it? It's not, people aren't going out necessarily for that anymore.
You're correct. They just want to it's the movie of their own life.
But I also I respect the fact that actually
we're all doing it.
Yeah, but people could actually just want more or different. You know,
I think there's a lot of people that do just want it's an energy release. I think a lot of people, it is to go out and dance, and to a degree, they are more raw and animalistic desire than I ever had. I used to go because I loved the music. There are so many people now that I see, and it was back in the day as well, but I see loads of people that are now they're there to get mash up and just dance, not necessarily they want aggy, high energy music for that reason. And I think that could be but it's one of a million different contributing factors.
I'd counter that because I feel like there's less dancing in a rave than there ever has been.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, there's less dance. Most people are just there having it's a social catch up. I remember even looking at a gig I played recently, and it's everything's going on, and you can just see people just having mad conversations, and they can hear each other, and they're at the front of the dance. It's it was never like that. I would be I would go and I'd be off, and then be searching for my mates in Fabric, where the hell are they? And then you'd
that was it.
You exactly. You'd have a quick word in someone's ear and stuff, but you don't get me wrong, you'd still be chatting, but just less so.
I think it's the culture of what we used to call back in the day the chin stroker, where you'd be the people that are really into their music. This was me, right? I'd go to hear new music. Yeah. There was a time where again, this shows my age, but also how things have changed. There was a time where you could go watch Andy C on a Thursday in a 200, 300 cap club in Brighton. And there was a point where I remember making a commitment to myself, I'm never going to miss Andy C in Brighton. I was 18 or something. And I was just I made a commitment to myself never to miss him, because I was always blown away by selection and mixing. Always. Yeah. It's a long time ago. It was 2000, probably 5, 4, something like that.
Facts.
Long time ago.
That era,
Yeah, I mean, and that just doesn't exist now. You'd never catch him in a 200 cap club. And the club I'm talking about is now gone in Brighton, right? But I was there. There would be certain times I'd be there to get hammered and enjoy the music, but a lot of the time it was to commune with people in my scene in Brighton. Yeah, socially, to get together and to hear what this person, who's this producer or DJ who you liked, was going to play. And now I feel because again culturally and sort of everyone's got this existential dread. I think there's a lack of hope in the UK actually, generally. I think there's people want something they can bank on. They want to go out and know what they're going to hear, and hear the big tunes.
It's like you said about the money thing as well. It's such an investment. It's like I know that I'm going to get the experience I want for that £40 like drum sheds ticket. You're right. I just think there's going to be some people that start wanting other things.
Well, there's
definitely no shortage of those people. I think they already exist. Because I mean, like, surely you must have this after certain shows you'll play. And you'll get messages from people on Instagram or on Twitter or whatever. And like, I always think it's so lovely that people do this and message artists and DJs afterwards, because clearly we all sit here and we think that no one wants to hear what we do. We think that they all want to hear a very certain type of thing, right?
No one thinks no one wants to hear what you do.
Like, you'll play certain shows
John.
and you'll get
Channeling himself.
I literally was like, that one's for John.
Yeah.
I couldn't let him get away with that. Never.
But there's many shows I'll play where you'll get a message from someone being like, "Oh, that was such a good set, man! Like, it was a real journey you took us on, sort of thing." And I'm like, "Thank you."
Those are the people I'm playing.
Yeah,
for,
exactly. Because that's the
100%.
reason why, and I need to be told that by people every now and then. Like, only if it's true.
I'm an MC in D&B. Like, literally, I'm living and breathing that. Like, there's like 5 people that actually give like a shit that you're there, like lenging bars. The rest of you just want to be like, make some noise every now and then. Obviously, I'm exaggerating, but like, look, you take ego out of it, really. You have to. The point is, I'm there because I love the music and I'm going to continue doing what I love doing, and I've managed to make enough of a career out of it to still be here and still, enjoying this drum and bass experience that I'm on. But like, of course, any MC would understand that more than most DJs, because the amount of shit you get for being an MC is like mad. Like, you can't even get booked by a promoter now. A DJ books you. Like that is a mazza, and there's a whole other conversation.
Someone says, "I want Rich to MC my
Literally,
set."
I've been thinking about it a lot recently, and it's an interesting point. But like, these independent promoters need to come back, because then we might start seeing that whole like, oh, I've paired that DJ with that MC again, and maybe that combo could work. Let's take a risk. It's the risk you're talking about.
He's due a lot of credit anyway, but I'll give him some more for this. Rich in Manchester is like that. He pairs. He knows how to pair.
Yeah.
So like, I'm doing this one on Saturday, which is I'm playing with Fox, but then before me they've got LSB and DRS doing Space Age, but I think they've got Tyler as well doing like PA stuff over the top.
Yeah.
It's like, people will go for that because that's a spectacle.
100. Yeah. I mean, like Rich's lineups are always done, and I'd put him in that sphere of that like old school sort of independent promoter that I'm talking about. And I think when that comes back, it'd be nice to see, because don't get me wrong, the DJ MC dynamic, I get why that's ended up being a thing, and obviously I'm trying to do that with certain people myself, but I do miss that, and I have lost shows because like a promoter wants to book me and they're like, nah, you're not on their list and stuff. And it's like, that culture never used to be a thing. Like, why is a DJ deciding who the promoter books as an MC? Like, we were talking about money and stuff. I don't know, like...
I don't know, like...
I shouldn't rant too much on it, because John will have a go at me for making this an MC podcast, but it was a relevant point to what we're saying.
It's interesting that you were talking about, like, the 5 people in the room, obviously you're like exaggerating.
Yeah, I'm definitely
the 5 people in the room that like are there for it, right? But we're talking about like core demographics, and earlier on you were talking about like, if you had a fan, but if you knew that you could flog 500 tickets or 1,000 tickets in Manchester, like you could do like a split on the door sort of thing. Yeah. It feels more and more like you could have 50,000 followers on Instagram, but only 49,000 of them are ever going to see your posts, right? And then out of those 1,000, only 500 of them are ever going to interact with it. And out of those 500, 300 will actually click the link,
right? Not show your shit to your fan.
How do you actually reach people?
Well, exactly. So
what's the point you made?
We've got like a Telegram group now, because I'm just like, do you know what? Screw it. If I can get 1,000 of our biggest fans around the world all in one place where we can just chat on a daily basis, like,
winner.
I'd rather have that than Instagram.
That's the one.
Yeah,
our Telegram aim and brother family.
It's knowing how to filter people down, isn't it?
100%. It's the people that actually want to hear what you're up to, regardless of whether it fits whatever sort of mold. They just want to hear you do you, and they're the fans you want to really engage with.
The other thing with the way that the platforms work now is like, most people aren't scrolling through people they follow anymore. They're just going through the For You algorithm.
You're getting ads,
So, like,
and sponsored shit. And,
Yeah, but not even that. It's just like what the algorithm thinks they want to see,
Yeah.
not who they've opted
Crazy,
in
isn't
to
it?
follow.
Which-
the like and all this shit.
Like, so,
Dead.
like,
It's dead. Like
lazy.
the idea of likes is just kind of.
Did you man
almost
see
gone.
the whole reset your feed thing the other week?
No.
So I saw this thing floating around on Instagram,
So
which
off the
I had
pulse.
never heard of, and now I'm going to start doing it every couple of months now. But it was really
you
interesting,
delete all
big
of
dynamic.
the
You can go into the
algorithm,
settings and basically, you can reset your algorithm, and what it shows you, it just gives you a whole fresh new
Do you
take.
have to delete your feed? Are you talking about that? Is that what you were thinking?
No. It's just all it does. So I won't say who, but I always felt like, and again, they were artists that have got major backing, so there probably is some truth to what I'm saying. But I felt like whenever they had a new post, these two artists in particular, they were always at the top of our feed. The first thing you ever opened on Instagram, it was going to be one of these two artists if they had posted in the last
how
day
they're
or
doing
two,
that
right?
without like money backing it. Eh?
Well, so I thought it must be sponsored and like plugging it, and then I did this whole refresh the thing. I haven't seen their shit in weeks.
Yeah, nice.
So, and I've seen it, even though I've been looking at their page to try and be like, have they been posting and stuff? So I'm even searching their name, I'm liking their posts, and it's still not force feeding me their content. So I can't remember how we got on this point, but
It's like training.
We've been everywhere, mate, already.
It's like training. Essentially, you're training like a little AI model. That's what the algo is, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly,
It's like
yeah.
every time you do something on that platform, it remembers and then it shows you that.
it thinks it's based on like your taste. It thinks it's
Yeah.
learning your taste, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Really?
It's crazy, isn't it, man?
Yeah.
Been going on for a long time as well.
So, just this will probably go out after this has happened. But I'm doing, even not like. I'm not been trying to get too grandiose with this record, right? Because ultimately it's just some drum and bass music.
I've got a few more questions.
Yeah, that's cool. But I'm gonna
back
just tell you some bits I'm doing.
Is this the workforce chatbot shit?
Oh, you know about this? Okay, so this is
I
one.
don't.
This
You
is one
don't
of the
even
things.
pay attention
I'll
to the
tell you.
group,
So,
mate.
okay, so basically, speaking to all the shit that we were talking about before, right? I just had this moment where I was like, no one listens to fucking anything anymore, and like everything gets treated like trash. So why not treat it like trash? So basically, what I'm doing is, and this will have already happened by the time this goes out. I'm releasing a week before the album. I'm releasing a version of the album that's called the distorted, unlistenable version, which is every single track distorted and sounds like shit, just like fucked up. The idea being that if everyone's gonna like treat music and art as disposable bollocks, and DSPs are gonna treat it like disposable fodder for playlists, why not actually release actual trash? So like art as trash, trash as art, right?
Right.
Yeah, so that's coming out like the week before the real album. Do you want to hear them?
Yeah. So hold on. So the reason you're saying this is because this isn't going to come out before that happens.
This podcast episode will be after.
Yeah,
that's
because
come
you
out.
obviously want this to come out and have like an impact of people being like, "What the fuck's going on?"
Well, the point is, I'm going to release it with no explanation at all. It will come with the
You're
week
gonna do a
before
Caliber.
the actual.
No press
It's going to
release
come
or
the
nothing.
week before the actual record, right?
Right. And it's coming out on the DSP.
It's coming out on every platform. Yeah.
That's crazy. And then when the actual album is released, is it getting?
Yeah, we'll take it down.
That's mad.
I've got no signal in here.
I got Wi-Fi.
So it's almost like a.
Wi-Fi.
So you're releasing. So they are just the album tunes, but like unlistenable because they're like
just
clipped
like
to
completely
fuck and
distorted. Yeah. And
I like this.
yeah, so I just
I'm
had this
very
idea-
intrigued to
I
see
just
how
had
this happens. Like,
I think
what this does.
my mantra moving into this year was like, I just want to do some different shit.
Yeah.
I feel like
That's different as fuck.
Yeah, and it's not even some grandiose statement. It's just like
No, I'm just genuinely. I
was just interested.
imagining this. Yeah, exactly the same as you. I'm just very intrigued as to what
Which
that
one is it?
will
John?
do.
I've spent quite a lot of time working out like what this is about essentially because I had the idea and then I was like, cool. How are we going to explain this to people?
Right.
So they sound like this.
This is fantastic, by the way.
I know, really good content.
Yeah, I mean, it's blatantly going to like.
Are the first
pick up some
100?
noise.
Are the first 100 vinyl pre-orders also going to get distorted, unlistenable versions on their vinyl masters?
Yeah, literally, like they'll be going on Discogs in like 10 years' time for like
So-
thousands of pounds.
What I'm thinking about doing, and I may not do this. What I'm thinking about doing on the Bandcamp is to do a limited edition 1 of 10 hand smashed versions of the album. So what I was thinking was, if I get 10 copies of the album, once I sell 10 copies of the vinyl, I'll literally just set a camera up, get a mallet, smash one, put it in the mailer, write the person's name on it that's ordered it, and then just seal it up. So it's like a sort of like time, what do you call it? Like time capsule. So like that's the one you're getting, and I smashed it, and there's the video of me doing it. There you go, and it's completely unlistenable. Or the other thing I was thinking was like to do.
I actually really like that.
to do like a dub plate of the unlistenable version. Yeah. So like, someone's ordered one of the dub plates. They've paid me 70 quid for it. Like, can you just cut the distorted unlistenable version?
Sure.
So they've got this 1 of 5 thing.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to troll people here, but it's like, you know that. And again, I'm not saying I'm like Banksy, but you remember Banksy did that thing where he shredded the artwork as it sold.
Yeah.
I'm thinking it's a limited edition thing that has no value at all. Because it sounds like dog shit.
Because you can't listen to it and it's smashed. Yeah. But it's because it's 1 of 5.
Yeah.
There is this weird mentality around that. Like,
this is the Tyler tune. I'll play it into the thing. The distorted, unlistenable mix.
Is it Mischief?
Just skip in a little bit.
It's not just because it comes through a phone either, guys.
You're such a joker. So this is getting dropped a week before this actual thing comes out, and it's just like no explanation or nothing.
No, but you've got.
So everyone's gonna be like, this is honestly promo gold. Because everyone will be like, mate, there's something wrong with the files you delivered.
But surely you're going to put in brackets distorted version.
Oh yeah.
So people will know that it's meant to be fucked up.
I had a really extreme name for it, but I've currently changed it to, so it's called the Distorted Unlistenable Edition.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's fantastic.
I've written loads of explainers for it, but like ultimately, it's just like a little conversation starter about how all like art's treated like trash.
Yeah.
That's actually very.
There's a lot more to it. I've thought a lot more about it, but also like on the subject of nothing is sacred. I was doing a lot of thinking towards the beginning of this year. Like the beginning of this year has been pretty mad, to be honest. But lots of thinking, and one of them was I was having a shower, and I suddenly thought I was doing all this stuff with ChatGPT, and I was like really pushing it. And at the minute I'm trying to work out a mechanism to get some funding to this other project, but I won't talk about that. But I was in the shower, and I was like, hang on a minute. If nothing is sacred, what about if I trained a bot? Or like trained a workforce GPT, right? So how far can I go in terms of externalizing me, in terms of like how I think, what my principles are, what I believe in, what I've done in the past, how I think, how I talk. So basically, the long and the short is, I've done really.
You've got a robot.
I've actually got really far with it, right? So first of all, from a utility standpoint, for me, I've basically got this thing that thinks I've had it scan all the podcast transcripts. I've had it scan all of any writing I could find. It's gone through. I've imported my whole discography.
What have you used for this? Like,
ChatGPT.
Yeah, ChatGPT. Fine. Yeah.
I have done like 2 weeks of really exhaustive everyday training of this model, right?
And what does that look like?
So at the minute, within ChatGPT, it works perfect in the sense that it's built all the documentation for me in terms of how to train my own model.
Yeah.
And I've just hit a lot of hurdles, so I don't know how to do coding, but it's coded me a whole website. It's helped me with the Python coding to train the model, and ultimately, it's like it was just sort of a playful thing of like, if the theme is nothing is sacred, do I own my ideas? Do I own the things that I think about? And how funny would it be to give people
bastardize yourself?
Yeah, give people the option to interact with a version of me, right? And how close could I get? And also like, how far could you go with this in terms of like, if I wake up and I'm tired and I'm grumpy, can you on that day then change the thing to interact with people in a grumpy way? And also, what utility does this have? You know, in terms of because I'm not a big no hate or shame on anybody who does Patreon, right? But that's just never going to be me. It's not my thing. I'm not interested in getting into nitty gritty about how I do specific stuff. I'm much more interested in like ideas and creativity in the broader sense, right? So why not set up a version of me that if it can answer a question as effectively or in the way that I would, and it's in line with how I think about how things should be done or how things could be approached.
Could you put that behind a Patreon paywall?
Yeah, well, no, that's not why I thought
Nothing is sacred, Jack. Nothing is sacred.
But ultimately, it's like, can't that do, if it can represent my ideas in a way that is representative, right? And gets close to the ideas that I have and the ways that I think, is that any less valid?
Could it stand in for you one day in the studio when you need a day off?
The main,
It's
honestly,
some dystopian take on man ends up having child, has family, and realises he needs to create an alternate version of himself just to be able to like do all the shit that he does on a daily basis.
I started it as sort of like a playful thing, really, because I've done, obviously, with this, whenever you finish a project, obviously you've done all the music, you've done the artwork, you're in promo cycle, and like I said earlier, I sometimes go to the studio and just write more tunes when I should be doing other stuff. On this occasion, I did all this shit. So I was like,
Dr. Frankenstein of drum.
it's more like to ask. It's more like interesting to ask questions. So I'm like, with what I said earlier about like AI music fucking up Spotify playlists, all sort of shit. What impact AI is going to have on us later in terms of whether they're going to take our jobs or whether, you know, that album that came out the other day that was all silence. Did you hear that shit? Damon Albarn.
No.
Kate Bush and that, they just released an album where they'd put these microphones in famous studios and just recorded silence because the government is allowing companies to train their models on existing content. So the debate around AI at the minute is that they're using other people's work to train the models, right? So they're technically breaching copyright. There's a lot to be debated within that, but ultimately they're saying the government shouldn't allow that to be the case.
No.
But what they are doing is allowing people to opt out. So if you don't want the models trained on your material, you can opt out.
Yeah, which we've already done.
Yeah, and you can do it on Instagram as well.
All artists should get in touch with their distributors and record labels and say that you want to opt out of that.
But I think,
Yeah.
I know I hate it when people do this, right? So I'm going to do it anyway. Just to be devil's advocate, that would be like me having to pay all the influencers I had when I grew up. The only difference being that this is a machine, and or like it's not AI. So like, just to get to the root of it, ChatGPT is not artificial intelligence. It's just it's much more simple than that. And we might look back in a few years and go, this is bollocks. It's not what all it was cracked up to be. It might just be like another metaverse or a fucking NFTs or whatever. It's an amazing tool. I use it every single day, but I wouldn't say for 1 second that it's an articulate, self-thinking thing. It's just something that it's
regurgitating what's already been existing on the internet.
Yes,
isn't it?
Or whatever you train it to do.
Yeah.
So honestly, this ChatGPT version of me, as a tool for me at the moment, is amazing. The snags I've hit, I've got a landing page that allows someone to go in and ask it questions, right? But at the minute, because I'm no good at coding, I'm struggling to get it to respond like me outside, because what you can't do is train the model in ChatGPT and then export that. So I've just hit loads of snags with it basically. But from like I was hoping to have it already by the time this project comes out in like mid March or end of March to like launch this thing as just like a provocation rather than I'm not going to put it behind a paywall or anything like that. It's more just like, well, if ideas are free and, you know, why not? Why the fuck not? You can interact with this. But then the more I've got into it, and I've got a couple of friends who are like working in this space in Brighton, who are sort of saying, they're sort of going, you're well ahead of the curve here. We could definitely develop a protocol. Because like, imagine if we developed a protocol that would mean that you and anybody in the world whose opinion might be valued by someone else could develop a version of themselves that could be asked questions by anyone. So like, you could have a Rick Rubin GPT where like you would never be able to ask Rick Rubin a question ever. But if he trains an LLM model,
you can get pretty close to a decent answer.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
It's like AI Cameo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly that. And you pay per question. I'm not really into that, but like, I'm into it in terms of like sharing of ideas, you know?
Yeah, I know that's the bit that I'm intrigued by. That.
Can it do my social media campaign?
But I mean, but Rich, seriously, like,
that's what you could be asking it, man.
Yeah, no,
seriously,
you give it a link to your profile.
With the way that I have this thing trained now, it's not perfect, but because it's done, I've been so exhaustive with what the way that I've trained it, and I am gonna post up some bits where I sort of scroll through the main stuff, right? It's created these documents where it's like how I want the AI to behave, and then what the core principles driving the AI are based on what I think, and you can update them in real time. So, like I said, if on a day I'm having a shit day, I can change it to be moody to people or moody to me. But ultimately you can have it thinking for you all the time. So I said earlier I'm like million things pulling me in a million different directions. This hasn't quite got to the root of it in terms of solving it, but it can certainly take a bit of the load. And from like a creative standpoint, it's fucking unbelievable. If you're stuck with something, honestly, you can just go in and just, mate, it's any copywriting, unbelievable.
Wow.
Any like ideas, forming ideas around stuff, allowing it to help push off into different areas. It's just.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit more? Like, so you're saying you've got an idea, but you're stuck on something.
Say you've got a concept.
Yeah.
Or okay, so when I don't think I used it for set and setting, but I've certainly used it for projects since then. Where if I'm rationalising my thoughts around a project, or my thoughts generally about anything. Like I've chatted with it a lot about this club thing we're talking about and how to find a resolution, which is why, my ideas are more fully formed because this thing is informing it, So like, I've been speaking with Luke LSB about trying to put on a night where it is about community building, but it's also about barrier to entry not being necessarily money. And it's about us building a community around an idea and around music and around what we're going to do in the space. And it basically, you put in I was like talking to it about like what our key goals were, but also about how to build community and to make it accessible. And it just farts out like these ideas. And you can then go back and go, I like that one. Can you expand on it a bit more? I don't like this aspect of that plan that you've made.
Yeah.
Like I've got this idea about like an honesty ticket scheme where you have 3 tiers, which are like a supported, a standard ticket tier, and then like a contributor tier. So like the supported tier would maybe be £5 cheaper than the main ticket price, and the contributor tier would be £5 more. So for every contributor ticket that's bought, you can then allow someone who's maybe a bit more skint to buy a cheaper ticket. And then you've got, so it's like an honesty-based thing, but inherently it builds community because it's like a progressive, it's like a taxation, isn't it?
Really cool, actually.
And the technology doesn't quite exist to facilitate this yet.
What, on like ticketing platforms, you mean? Like,
yeah.
I mean, they like probably lap fast.
For that one, they do exist, to be fair, because you just have 3 prices and you make them all available at the same time, right?
Right.
But in practice is whether it actually works. But the biggest thing I think moving forward that everyone's going to have to be is just really transparent about like everything, about how much you make, how much you've been paid, how much the club is making. You see that post that went viral a couple of weeks ago where the woman was talking about, I think it was a woman, I can't remember, but it was like, it priced in like the headliner, and it was like the promoter makes 200 quid.
Yeah, where's the incentive?
Yeah, where's the incentive? When I first started playing that, it was like groups of students have just clubbed together their student loan.
Yeah.
I remember this group of lads we used to play for in Bristol at Basement 45. I can't even remember the night, but I remember all the lads from it. I can't remember all their names, but I remember all their faces because we just go up like 3 or 4 times a year and play for them. And they were just like students, and that's just gone. We've got to work. Basically, we've got
TTB, was it?
Nah, what the fuck were they called?
But then also, I mean, interestingly, like I remember there was a time where, like, me and Harry were being paid a quarter of what we're being paid now, and that was enough for us to be the headliner with a load of other local lads or local DJs and artists that you've never heard of who were all sick. And it feels now like the small club, the dying of the small club is obviously having an impact on that. But also, just like, it feels like people don't want to spend, feels more and more like it's that people don't want to spend £10, £15 to go see one kind of small headliner when for twice or maybe 3 times as much money they could have that once a month night where they get 6 big headliners in one, innit?
Even that, like, I remember days when you pay £10, £15 and you'd see you Perez, Skeptical,
Yeah, there was
and like
that.
4, and
But
then
that weren't
literally
like 10
it's
years
actually.
ago. That was like 15 plus, wasn't it?
There was one that
No,
Shogun
don't-
posted a little while ago that was of Shogun at the end night, and it was Pendulum, Shy Effects, Zinc, Friction, Spectrosol, Perez. It might have been like Break,
I was here.
Randall. It was
I was
mental.
there for that. And the Fabio and Groove Ride, I think, were also playing.
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I remember some of the lineups at that
It was like 12 quid.
Great Suffolk Street warehouse as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
Some of them ones were like epic, and like, but you were like the early bird was probably £8.
Yeah. But then also,
That's
how much
like-
was a beer on that night?
This is
I,
the thing.
I think it's less so much how much is a beer. It's like
I think there's inflation
It's the cultural.
in a 15-year window as well.
It's the cultural move, but it's also the
Yeah.
cost of the venue to be open. The cost of the venue to people
Is
now
to-
is extortionate.
yeah.
isn't it?
The rent in London and
Yeah,
or
it's just
in
mental.
every city in the UK.
There's lots of
around
things
the
working
world,
against it,
yeah.
and also DJ fees, like in terms of inflation, have gone mental.
They're
They have.
mad. Yeah.
They have gone mental, and so there's a lot of that. I saw Ommunit talking about it the other day, where he was just sort of saying that fees have to come down, and I'm
totally agree.
I'm sort of in two places with it, because I'm sort of like, fees have to come down if you want small clubs to survive. If you want to support small clubs, you have to play them for less. Right?
Yeah.
But I also think there's maybe a model where if you're going to play a bigger show, like a big show, that you are almost saying to those promoters, look guys, I'm going to charge you like 500 quid more maybe, or like 25% of whatever your fee is. That's not 25% of my fee, by the way. It's more than that. No, I'm kidding. You're saying to them, look guys, I'm going to charge you guys a bit more, but the reason I'm going to do that is so that I can play this other one for cheap.
Yeah.
So you can, it's almost like a sort of way
Same
of,
as that ticketing system
so
you're sort of speaking about.
you're saying, you're going to these big promoters and you're asking them, guys, I would like you through this mechanism to help me to support smaller clubs, because at the moment there isn't really a mechanism that exists to transfer money from bigger promoters who are more business savvy and doing huge events all over the country to a grassroots venue that are going to provide the talent that venue then books in the future. I think the thing is to remember, though, even within that conversation, is that we're presupposing that all these small venues are where artists will cut their teeth in the future. But I've seen a lot of people come through in the last few years who are playing these big events who have just bypassed this small club.
Oh, 100.
Entirely. So then you're sort of in the debate. I don't believe this, but you're in the debate about whether that functionality is required anymore. You get what I'm saying? And I think it's something, you can't go too down the rabbit hole in terms of your bias because of what you believe. You have to sometimes think, well, like I said, does the market decide that we don't want small clubs anymore, or does the market need them to develop small talent now? I disagree with both those things.
Do you know the other aspect of this? That when I went off in a tandem earlier, and then
Tandem?
Sorry, tangent, and then
Who was on it with you?
and then like forgot what I was talking about. But it was the fact that there's quite a lot of sort of, let's say, like mid-level artists who have lost a ton of work as a result of this. Of how the music scene's gone right now. And if you were an independent promoter and you actually went to them and it's like, this is what I can offer you to play. And like, I'm talking about so many different people that I speak to, myself included. It's like, do I want to play a show or do I not? Because I've got an opportunity to earn some money at like a reduced fee to play the shows we're talking about. Like, not even like massively, like, don't get me wrong, I don't really think MC fees are the problem here, if I'm totally honest. No. However, like, I know a bunch of mates of mine that used to be really, really busy, like every single weekend, and currently aren't, and actually would probably rather play out every week and earn, like, say you're getting paid like 2 big fees in a month, you'd rather actually play 4 shows and earn the equivalent.
I'm the opposite.
I get you are, but and I'm not actually saying that's wrong, because
more of a preference. I think.
Two isn't really the scenario. I'm talking about people that like don't have gigs, even like some months they go without gigs, and it's like, do you want that gig or not? And actually, they'd rather play out than not, because they only, they're trying to get back to like 2, 3, 4 shows a month, and it's like, in that instance, there's definitely a group of people that you could bring like you could bring lineups, credible lineups of like those middle level artists. You get like one headliner who does what you're doing. Is like, I'll take a reduced fee, slight reduction on my fee in order to headline your show and, you know, build community. And then you just populate it with a bunch of people who, you know, would be really happy to just be busy again.
I would
all of a sudden, you don't know, you know that.
But I think,
I think that's going to be needed to happen.
I think some of the headline fee reduction things are already happening, depending on who and what sort of scale of club and where as well. Because like me and Harry, for example, don't just have like a blanket fee.
No,
it's like if you ain't mentioned that,
Of
we're
course.
not doing it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
You go to, there'll be certain promoters from other like parts of the world where you just know that like financially, what they can offer is like half of what the average promoter here is offering. Or, for example, like there'll be a club in like Guildford or something like that, like where it
33 hertz.
yeah, like there's 150 cap there. You can't charge your full fee,
but it's a vibe.
But it's a sick show, and like I'm doing it, like, and as long as it doesn't tread on the toes of other promoters that you've already made an agreement with. And that's the other thing, like me and Harry have never agreed to do a show for a promoter, even if it's on like cheaper than normal, and then turn around to them 4 weeks later and gone, actually mate, we're bailing on this because someone's come through with a better offer.
Yeah, I know it's already happening. I'm just saying, I think a more collective effort for it to happen is needed.
100%.
I think there's a lot of people who want to be full-time DJs.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of what I was saying earlier about wanting to be brave, you can't be brave and a full-time DJ at the moment and expect to be gigging every weekend.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I agree.
So I think there's a lot of... it's the same with all of this stuff, and it all sounds really negative, but I actually feel like if you're not really busy, there's never going to be a better time than now to sort of rein your ego in, find some other way of making some money to top you up, and then just take the shows you want to do, either on the terms that you want to do them.
Oh, I think that's also part of just the evolution of just like I've gone through that process recently. I'm just doing what I want to do and I'm enjoying it. I've got the love back. I care how busy I am, but if I'm not busy or like I don't have as many shows, I'm not making that the expectation.
Yeah.
Because really the expectation was always to enjoy myself, and I've already achieved more than what my 11 to 18-year-old self ever thought he would achieve. So actually I'm winning regardless of what happens here, and I'm just surrounding myself and, you know, putting myself with an agent I'm really happy with, who's like just on my wavelength, and just trying to surround myself with people who
understand it.
And who actually like, get what
they respect the space you want as well when you want it, but also they respect the hunger and the drive to do it and enjoy it.
Yeah. But equally, I will chirp up when I think, you know, the MC culture needs to be chirped up, because I do think it's struggling right now and in a particularly difficult space, and it hurts me a bit, because I think when I came into it, it was a lot more like prevalent. Now it's like you're a recording artist or a host, and there's a bit less barring in the deeper realms of D&B. But I think that's another conversation.
The brass tacks of all of this conversation and everything we're talking about, it kind of, I think it can appear to be like moany, but actually I think there is a lot working against us in terms of an ecosystem at the moment. Like the way things have gone in the last 15 years in terms of people's mobility, their money in their pocket, and their ability to access their fans. I think there's and then also obviously all the COVID and the club shit and behaviours of people. There's a lot changing, and I think I do, and to sort of back my point about being an optimist, I think there's a lot to be really excited about in terms of opportunity, because you can get bogged down in like the state of the club scene and all this sort of shit, but there's just tons of opportunities to do other stuff, and to like.
I mean, you're doing so much other stuff, man.
Well, not even to like do stuff outside, but just to sort of. There's opportunity now to like cultivate what the future is.
Yeah,
and I think. Yeah, I'd rather be part of that and try to be optimistic. But I mean, if Jon were here, he literally would be slating me right now
because you're saying you're trying to be optimistic. Yeah.
Because I'm constantly sending him stuff and going, "Have you seen this?"
You also quote unquote called yourself a cynic earlier.
Yeah.
Just look with the optimistic thing. I just wanted to throw one thing in there, right? And I think you're right to remain optimistic, because it seems very much to me like your approach is that you are you are a contributor to this, right? And you can contribute in different ways. And I think COVID could have helped everybody to achieve a bit of this to some degree. But like this realization that when you're not mad, crazy touring, whether that's because of the state of the club industry or whether that's the way that people spend money or how much money people have got in their pockets, regardless of why, when you're not like mad busy on the road touring, it's like, well, I'll contribute to this art and this culture and this community by creating and making and creating music. And then when you're not creating, you're focusing on the touring, and you've got your two ways that you can contribute: spread more music and make more music, spread more music.
I think you have a really good balance.
Yeah.
I think it's good to be cynical and it's good to be optimistic.
I
And
think
those two
cynicism
things
is in the aid of optimism. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
Like, it's. I guess it's because my inner critic is trying to hold me to a super high standard. So like, it's hard not to then let off some of that steam by trying to hold other people to a higher standard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Right, should we rattle through some of these?
Through.
So these are just like fan questions from like
Patreon.
Instagram, basically. We got. We didn't even put it out to the patrons, did we?
Terrible.
Sorry, Patreons. Thanks for subscribing, but yeah, next time. This was right. JC or J Clary. I don't know. It's like got a one in there, but what would you do if you weren't a producer DJ?
I'd probably be doing graphic design or motion design. Probably.
Yeah.
I'm almost certain that's a question that you were asked the last time you were here.
Actually, I think you might be right about that. And
I already knew the answer to that.
Yeah, because that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you about this project, was about the the whole aesthetic, because you're so heavily involved.
Well, there's no one else.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I think sometimes you just finish a project and then you go, well, what am I going to do for this artwork? But I'm the same with my artwork as I am with my music. I won't have an idea. I'll just go through a process and then see if I like and stop when I get to a result that I'm like, that looks cool, or that sounds cool. I'm not like one of those producers or designers or creatives that has an idea and then tries to realise it. It's more just like, I'll allow myself to go through a process until I come to a result that I think looks cool or sounds cool. And then within that, you might have some pointers about like other stylistic choices that, I don't know, references, you know. But I just sort of trust the process. I just always have. Plus, it's much more fun to do it that way.
Yeah.
You rarely will you have a solid idea and realise it perfectly, and you'll frustrate yourself trying to realise an idea that's already fully formed in your head. Whereas when you just go through a process and try some stuff, it's more fun as well, and you learn loads.
Happy accidents along the way, things like that. Yeah,
that's where all the fun. Like that's where the fun is. Like happy accident. Look, and you like
Getting
I learned.
lost.
Yeah, I learned loads about design and about animation just in this project because you're forced to.
You'll have an idea and you'll be like, I can achieve 80% of this just by clicking away and experimenting. Yeah. And then there'll be one little thing you're like, but how do I make it do that? And then you'll just Google that one thing. And you're like, great, now I know how to do that. Yeah.
But literally, the artwork for this project is a load of stacked photos. It's like my press shots stacked up.
Yeah.
And then just like loads of different like experiments with texture and blending modes, so that you
got a very consistent aesthetic through your workforce project. Really,
but that's been
slick
by intention. But then it's the same as the workforce output musically. Like I can't necessarily see the thread, but the objective
the same
consumer can see it. You know.
Rollout Records asked, "What was your favourite Spectrasol set?"
Oh fuck, that's a hard one.
Yeah.
Spectrasol set.
We'll try and keep these quick fire. You can't.
Probably there's one that's on SoundCloud that was recorded for Drum Bass Arena that was me and AD at Cable, and I think 2011.
I reckon that was that. Shogun Audio Cable.
There.
Yeah.
Maybe. Introed with this like really old Dub Physics record that I heard him play on the weekend. I was like, yeah, I remember that one. It's really good. And that set is like super weird as well. It was like 4 a.m. I'd already been to bed, and I just got up and rolled down to Cable and played that set with AD. Yeah, it was a good one.
Ford has asked, where do you draw inspiration for the artwork for a release?
For the artwork.
Is it the same place as the music, like your artwork?
I think like I've got my own taste that I just know that I like from studying graphic design, and also just like you're on socials, aren't you? You scroll through and you go, I like that, and you save it into. I usually save stuff that I find interesting looking, or
What, like on the gram or Pinterest or
the gram usually, like just have a saved because you can folder them off, can't you? With titles. Yeah, no, I don't know actually. Like, I think for the set and setting one, I did see a reference that I liked. I can just see my foot like wiggling in the corner of it.
It's like that train's getting real close.
Yeah, I don't know. There's no like direct inspiration. I think I just again like process and just knowing what style I like, being and trusting my taste, I guess.
Garu J's asked, do you often sit down with the intention of writing a track, or does it just come to you? It's kind
process.
Yeah.
It's all process. If it's with a sample, it sometimes is a bit more directed from the off, but often, like I did a session with Luke LSB at the beginning of this year. We did 2 days. And it was literally 6th of January, and we both were just like cobwebs over from New Year and Christmas. And we just wrote 6 tunes in 2 days because we were just like, it was just pure process, and they're not the tunes that you would imagine me and Luke to make either. They're not liquid tunes at all. They're totally different. Yeah.
Wicked.
Yeah.
Rakimba asks, how much snare and top loops do you use, or is it programming? Your top and snare sounds are so unique.
Really sorry to say this to the person who's asked this question, but this is just so not the interesting bit that I'm into. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
this is the kind of question that, no disrespect, Rakimba, but I'm just like,
snare and top loops. I think it's more. I'm always more about feel with drums, so I'm always looking for like shuffle and groove, and it's what I'm looking for when I'm, like I said earlier, like scrolling through breaks. I'm always just looking for like that little character groove that's in it, or if I can program it in. So like, and there's no template really. I tend to start from scratch every time with drums, unless I reuse them, in which case they're just the same ones that I've used in a different.
Interestingly, just to tie it in, Drogu, next question was like, what's your philosophy technique when organising drums, processing a drum group? They're kind of similar questions.
It changes depending on what it is.
What the vibe is.
I don't think I think once you think that there's a hard and fast rule, like you're never going to learn. I enjoy the process of like trying to make weird stuff work every time, fresh and new. Like I do reuse drums, particularly when I want to get an idea out quickly.
Yeah,
but like the fun
time saver, if anything, it's
for sure.
Like a placeholder, and then eventually you just you're a bit set on them.
Yeah,
like, actually they do the job. Why change them? Yeah.
But also, if you've got a drum sound that you think sounds good, that can be your sound. Like you guys have got that at the moment. You've got a really like solid drum sound.
Thank you.
That works and has a good groove to it, and that's your sound, isn't it? And everyone else in like EDM world does that. So why can't you?
And do you find, like, I find that with drum processing, it's one of those things that like I'm constantly trying to learn how to make good, chunky, snappy sounding drums, and then suddenly one day I realised I'm not learning anymore. I'm just doing, but there's no numbers to it or eyes. It's just I've worked out what it is in the way that we mix our tracks, like what you need to have in
everyone gets
things in it.
Exactly. Yeah,
there's adaptation.
Eventually it just kind of clicks, doesn't it? Really, one day.
I do think that drum and bass fans are unique in their sense of wanting to understand technique. Do you know what I mean? There's not many music genres where people would send in questions about technique. I think,
but it is so
quite unique for that. But to be like positive about it, I think it's because making drum and bass drums is really hard.
Yeah,
it's like, you remember when Rudimental first came in and started making drum and bass, and everyone in drum and bass was going, "What the fuck are these drums? They sound terrible." They sound awful.
I still stand by that. Like, there's some not entry level. They're like entry point tunes into drum and bass, right? They take a big inspiration from drum and bass, but wholeheartedly, we would all, as drum and bass producers and writers, all look at that and go, "It's not drum and bass."
You go sonically, it's wrong, and
and it's sonically, it's the production. It's not the arrangement. It's not the composition. It's not the structure of the track.
The DNA's there, but like
it's the production approach to it that just feels off.
I do think actually to speak to that as well. I think that in recent years, the production angle has sort of produced us into a corner sound-wise, drum and bass-wise. And I think that's why there's been this jungle resurgence, is because there's like less focus on
gritty rawness
production. Yes, rawness, but it's also like it's actually sonically nicer on your ears. It's not as loud. You can there's dynamics, so you can lay them over the top of each other, and it doesn't sound horrible. Caliber's always done it. I mean, obviously he's like fucking god, but like his stuff still has dynamics, but also they weirdly sound amazing when you play them out. You listen to them in the studio and go, it doesn't sound right.
Yes.
Play it in a club.
Yes.
Fuck me, it all makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's weird.
It's such an anomaly, that guy.
Yeah.
Such an anomaly.
I guess you know, he trusts himself. He
Yeah.
understands his ear. He knows what sounds good. I think that's the main thing. Like, there is no technical solution to any of these questions. Like, people can ask a very specific question. It's kind of part of my thing with Patreon as well, with producers. Is like, that person... There's a million ways to skin a proverbial cat, right? So you learning how to do something from someone doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be able to reproduce or replicate that when you do it yourself.
Could be limiting you to a certain extent, because actually you might figure out something doing it of your own accord that they haven't clocked yet.
There's a million. I was on the phone to Charlie Brake earlier, and I sent him this other tune that I've signed. And I was saying, there's one little thing I need to change with this, and I can't quite work it out. And he listens to it and goes, it's this. And then we were both talking about 5 different ways to solve it. And he went, that's an interesting thing. I'd never thought to do that before. And then he'd say something to me, and I go, fucking hell, I'd never thought of doing that. Like, you know, some multi-band gate shit, you know, boring technical stuff. But yeah, there's so
crazy.
So yeah, like, it's just groove and feel. I think it's one of those things where if you spend loads of time doing something, you eventually get to a point where you trust your taste and also what you're good at and able to do.
Your methodology.
Yeah, your methodology.
Yeah.
Taste and space. I've just moved into a new room like in the last month, and it sounds like shit, and I really cannot. I'm struggling to get my head. Yeah, I'm struggling to kind of get my groove in there. But
I don't think. I just think. Basically, if there was a magic question, a magic answer to any of these questions, it is literally just time and experimentation. The more time you put in, and the more you try stuff, and the less bogged down you get in with snares and kicks and all this kind of shit, you'll have much more fun. And you'll make music that you have a good relationship with, and you might, you know, burst into some new arena of drum and bass that hasn't yet been explored. And let's do
Invent the 3001 subgenre.
Yeah, let's go.
Hold tight, Ransom, but we kind of touched upon parenthood affecting your music and artistry, so I'm going to skip past that. Monument Banks has asked favourite tinned soup. I would argue that you just need to respond saying favourite soup, because I know you like to cook, and I can't imagine you eating a tinned soup.
No, I don't eat tinned soup.
No.
Sainsbury's do a really, really nice spiced cauliflower soup. Have you had that?
Yeah, I've had that one.
Really nice.
Their dal ones, the dal soup they do as well is pretty banging.
I tend to just like look at what I've got in the cupboard, tinned veg-wise or bean-wise, and then just fry up a load of... Yeah, just make it.
Yeah, 100.
I did it today. Mad texted me. He was like, "I'm at the supermarket. Got to do Osa's lunch when I get home." I'm like, "When are you going to be home?" She's like, "Half an hour." I was like, "Fuck!" And I just like chucked loads of. We had some celery, some carrots, tinned tomatoes, beans. Just chucked it all in a pan, fried it all off. Some herbs and spices, blitz. Does he like it? Yeah, he loves it. Eat loads of it. Cheers. So, yeah,
literally.
Yeah,
I don't understand packeted baby food.
No,
when you can just it serves a purpose.
That Ella's Kitchen stuff.
Ella's Kitchen shit.
When it's like when you're in a jam or you're out.
Don't get me wrong.
Fed.
Fine.
Yeah.
But like when you're out and about, that's what it's for.
Yeah.
At home, it's like to make mashed up fucking vegetables. Like not difficult.
So
anyway,
no tin soups, thank you.
Neil DS or Nields. It's difficult to read these names. I'm really feeling for John now every time he tries to do this. Given how many sample packs there are now, is sampling a lost art form?
No.
I agree. Well, I mean,
absolutely not.
Of course not.
Just don't use sample packs.
Don't use. Yeah, go and listen to podcasts. Yeah.
Or just
create them.
Fucking go and listen to some. Like, there's all this AI stem split stuff now. I know it's like breaking the law unless you clear it, but like. Honestly, you can go through a process with a sample to take it from sounding a certain type of way to an unrecognisable form.
Well, that's it. I think that because you've got the stem split, the AI splitting thing now, you can actually separate that piano from the drums and the strings, and now you've got more freedom to creatively destruct it, and now no one would ever know.
Exactly.
So actually,
that's what I mean.
Sampling of anything is more accessible than ever.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And actually, like, all those limitations that come with working with something like that have a creative power in themselves.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
We're going to have to really rattle through some, I think. Do you ever listen... Sorry, this is Alex McKay says, do you ever listen to Spectral music these days? And how do you feel about listening to your own music?
I don't listen to my own music.
Yeah.
Apart from when I'm DJing. Or when I'm trying to finish something, you listen to it religiously.
Yeah, like when you're making it, but once it's done, nah. Interesting. Right, we've got the D&B mega group, which is aptly named. What's it? This group. This chat room.
Yeah, this chat room D&B.
Hold tight. Pete overview on that one.
Yeah.
Because
I get all the funny screen grabs. I'm resisting being added.
Mate. Honestly, if like I said to them, I was like, this is dangerous, me hosting this podcast today with these questions, because I want to read them out, but a couple of them I'm going to do off camera because they're fucked. Quite literally. But Slater has come with a few really good ones, actually. Favourite character from The Simpsons that isn't one of the Simpsons family?
I was big into The Simpsons when I was young, but I haven't watched it for years. Probably... that's really hard.
It's hard off the spot. I was thinking...
Barney, probably. It's got to be Barney.
I was thinking Groundskeeper Willie for like a wild Willie, one. Yeah. He's fucking militant.
Principal Skinner's hilarious.
Yeah. Also thought Nelson.
Yeah.
There's so many.
Ralph, come on.
I was thinking Ralph as well.
And Wiggum is hilarious as well, Chief Wiggum.
Chief Wiggum is good. Satirical play on cop is always a good one.
Is it Chief Wiggum's son? Who's that?
That's Ralph, yeah.
Is it Ralph? Yeah, Ralph's the best character.
Yeah, I actually thought Ralph come to mind. Honestly, there's so many.
Ned Flounders, obviously.
Favourite Roman emperor?
Oh, I just don't know any. So.
Me either. I would just say Caesar because I don't have a fucking clue. I'm going to leave that one. Would he... that makes... Think about what I'm leaving and then I'm going to this. Would he rather have finger-sized nipples or nipple-sized fingers?
These are unhinged.
It really depends on the size of your fingers.
Mate, it gets so much worse.
It depends on the size of your fingers and nipples.
I agree.
Because if you're like, I don't know, like a LeBron James...
Your fingers are this size. Your fingers are this size.
For that. You know.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Your fingers are your size.
Well, from a utility standpoint, you'd probably rather have fingers that actually function rather than just little stubby nipples on the end.
100%. This is ridiculous question.
Yeah.
I'm going to avoid reading Pete Overview's questions, and I'll avoid them off camera because we might get cancelled if we read those ones. I think we're going to get cancelled for that one as well. Wings, what's your secret to releasing such coherent music where nothing seems out of place?
Thank you, Marcus. I was with him on Friday. There isn't one. Just, I don't think about it like that. I think you have to be able to like leave that up to other people to make that decision as to whether it's coherent.
Yeah,
it can't come with thought. Like, maybe.
Not overthinking it.
Yeah, but sometimes, because I make such a broad spectrum of drum and bass, I enjoy making all of it. I sometimes I've released a couple where I've thought, I shouldn't have released that. With hindsight, I've gone, that isn't actually me. I just enjoyed making it. That could have stayed on the cutting room floor, sort of thing. You know what I mean? So there is some consideration there, but I think it's just remaining true to your principles and your ideas, and then ultimately, hopefully, there's a line that ties it all together that people will see.
Yeah, so Ruben, favourite frequency to dip when EQing, and then another question.
DJing.
He said when EQing.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. If I'm producing, my speakers in my room tend to I end up going, fuck me, there's loads of 6K in the room.
Yeah.
And often when I dip that out in my drums, I go, oh God, that's much nicer.
Okay. So there you go.
But DJing, all of them, they're all really good. Turn them all to the left, the tune will sound wicked.
Facts.
Everything.
Yeah, literally no clash whatsoever. Thank you.
Yeah.
His other one, this is the last question, was favourite non-dairy milk.
Oatly Barista, obviously.
Okay.
I was in
non-dairy milk, like oat, milk. Hazelnut, almond.
I thought you meant dairy milk, the chocolate.
You given the brand.
Yeah, so
Oatly's got.
I'm a bit. Yeah, they are a bit sketchy. Yeah. I'm a bit weird. Where if I go get coffee at a coffee shop, I always have cow's milk. I'll have a flat white with cow's milk.
Yeah.
But when I make coffee at home, I always have it with oat milk and oat milk in my tea. Actually, at home, I don't have dairy milk at home. It's weird, isn't it? I know.
I don't have dairy milk at home. I have
heat your milk.
I have organic milk.
Yeah, I've got this. I bought this milk frother thing on Kickstarter. And I did it during COVID, and then it arrived 18 months later. I was like, what the fuck is this? And it's like an 180 quid milk. I didn't even know what it was.
What?
This 200 pound milk frother you ordered at 4 a.m. April 2020.
Yeah, but
self-serving.
But what's mad
milk
is,
frother.
when you back a Kickstarter campaign, it doesn't charge you then.
No, it doesn't.
charges you when the fucking things.
Fuck's sake.
So this thing turned up, and then I was like, hang on a minute, let me look at my bank account.
Wow.
Fucking 178 quid.
Jesus Christ.
Wow.
That
we got stung on during COVID.
We got stung on our first album by doing that. We did like a Kickstarter thing, and we didn't realise it didn't take the money out of people's accounts. So suddenly we were like, we finally hit the target of 100. We can get the press going. Then you got to spend 3 weeks chasing 28 people to be like, yo, can you put £20 in your bank account, please? Because it wouldn't. There's loads of people obviously just like, on a whim.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I've just broken someone's bank account. Like they're brass for the end of the month or whatever.
Weird one. I've never thought of doing a project that way, but then I've done vinyl for this project, but it's like you have to pay like it's so expensive now. I only did like 300. They were just like, just do 300. You'll sell them, and I was like,
it's $3,000 just for the stamps, just to get the.
Well, it was three. It was
metalwork
three and a bit grand total for 317.
That's not bad. That's not.
But bear in mind,
bad.
I did 780 of set and setting, and that was $6,000.
So all.
Yeah, so you get.
It's already got that much like worse, so it just keeps still on the decline.
Mate, basically, if you want to press even 100 records, it's starting at $3,000. Then it goes up incrementally. It's not, but it's the press, it's the metalwork that costs $2,000 just to get the metalwork done. And
it's mad, isn't it?
Yeah, which is why, like, there's a handful of things that I've wanted to have cut over the years, but it's.
I guess so many people are.
But again, if
buying
you know,
it.
this goes back to like cultivating and knowing your audience, right? If you know where they are, and you know the ones that you've converted from just transient DSP streamers to hardcore Pola and Bryson fans, if you know there's 1,000 of them, you can go, right, we'll press 500, we'll definitely sell them.
Yeah.
Because we'll convert some people, and there'll be enough hardcores that you can sell to, right?
That is kind of where your idea comes into play, innit? You get people to subscribe, that you like pre-order the album here, we're only going to literally order the exact amount we need, and then, you know, you round it up to the nearest 50.
I want to start doing
copies left over.
I want to start doing 1 of 10 acetate dubs. Just bash
For
them out.
the collectors,
to them collectors, like
smash
people
it
that
with a
will
mallet,
hate
innit?
it. Like no, but like
It's just about
little 10-inch
do the
things.
ones
Innit? You do
for
more-
smash.
tracks, like
I think we had a manager before when we were doing like post Delay No More. We had this guy that we worked with called Murray, who was like a good friend of Dave's, and I knew him relatively well, and he turned out to be a really shit-hot manager, but just ended up leaving the industry. And he was way ahead of his time in terms of being like giving fans, he was like, you need to give your fans like a different level to buy in at. So like some fans are only ever going to stream your music. They're not interested in becoming a hardcore fan. They're not that connected to it. Then some fans are going to be connected and they're going to want to buy a download or a CD. And then some are going to want CD, vinyl, t-shirt. Some are going to want like 1 of 10. And that's why we did all these etchings and shit like later in the day, because you realise actually even if you've only got 10 people that are going to buy them, you price them up right and you give people the chance to like show themselves as a true fan.
Super exclusive.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is as well, if you give people the options, like first time it's a download, then the second time it's a t-shirt, and the third time it's that 1 of 10 thing, innit? Like,
and so you're ultimately just backing yourself and your ability and your music. Like it's the same with all this stuff, bookings, with cultivating your audiences. It's the like you can't hide behind like, no, he's this much to book in this room. It's like, okay, I'm going to show you how much I'm worth, and it could be a complete flop. You could go, I'm going to take no guarantee, and you sell 100 tickets, and you just end up making nothing. But it puts the impetus back onto us again.
Yeah.
Not that I think we need another fucking thing to have impetus for. It would be nice to be able to just focus on just writing music and then.
Yeah.
You know, but it's not the world it's not the world we live in. It's not the world we live in. And again, that speaks to like being an independent artist, completely independent artist, like doing everything, having my own label, all that sort of shit. There's peaks and there's pros and cons to that too. There's certain times when I think, fuck, wouldn't it be nice to just be on a record label where you deliver them the music and they go, yeah, we like that, cool, we're gonna take 50%, but we'll do everything else.
until you turn around and you feel like they're not backing your corner as well as you.
Are we going to talk about why we left Shogun or?
No, 100%. That's not me saying that Shogun don't back our corner. Shogun have always backed our corner. But I just like speaking from mine and Harry's experience. We speak to other artists that have been on Shogun or have been on Hospital or have been with Critical or Ram, and people will share very different experiences about the 10 years they had with a label than what we had.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no wonder you wanted to leave, because you didn't feel like you had people back in your corner 100%.
To be fair, like just to take responsibility, I meant why Dave and I left Shogun.
Yeah.
I didn't mean you to.
I got.
Oh, right, yeah.
We
Oh,
didn't.
shit.
We
He got well triggered there,
No, the
didn't he?
thing
Like,
is,
all on
like,
the defensive, like,
I think
no, please.
I think with
leaving
hindsight, I feel very differently about that whole situation. But at the time, I was young and bullish and wanted to do other things, and that's all. It was never a big falling out. And you know, I owe them both a lot. The guys at Shogun, Ed and Kia, that like I owe them tons. In fact, they rolled the dice. They were amazing when we were working with them, and I was just young and bullish. And yeah, I've like, yeah, that's the other thing about growing older. You sort of have a different perspective about things. But and you know, I've had conversations with Kia. I still speak to Kia fairly regularly now. So it's not like, you know, it was never falling out. I totally respect their business, totally respect how they do everything. And like from the outsider looking in now, they are fucking doing amazing. Like you guys are flying, Emily's flying, everybody associated with the label is doing really, really well. So like, I've got nothing but like positive things to say about them.
To have to like reinvent that as well. Like, we always talk about it, obviously, because everyone's like pretty closely affiliated, but like from like the golden years to then end up in a position where you had to like just invent yourself almost, because all these artists had gone to do different things.
Being when you and Dave and you had like Alex
Perez
and
Rockwell, like
you man were running that.
I
shit,
use that term for someone of my age probably, because that's how it was. But yeah, like massive props to, you know, now being in a position with like yourselves, Galaxy, Monroe, Dusky, Emily, like you said, it's just like, it's crazy.
I think I guess the point I mean by saying all of that is like being totally independent has all the pros of having all the flexibility and artistic ability to do whatever you want, whenever you want. But then you realise once you've been independent, because Dave and I were independent from 2015 until we stopped working together, and I've been independent since then onwards, so like for 10 years. And sometimes I think back and go, fuck me, wouldn't it just be nice to have a team that you're working with who have an objective vision of how this project should go. You trust them, they trust you, and you can collaborate and make everything
bounce
work.
ideas off each other.
So there's a lot of merit in that, but again, like being a cynical control freak, it's hard. Like,
I guess the interesting thing is, in this day and age, obviously it doesn't have to come in the form of a label now, does it? It can come in the form of like a manager helping you.
Label services. There's all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, there's loads of different ways to do it now.
I think it's it's always been tricky in drum and bass, because there's always a certain element of the brand trying to be a thing in itself, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, there's a lot of labels that, you know, have successful nights, and they also built, like Northcourt are a good example. They've built a really nice little community together. The branding's really on point, the music's really good, and they have a regular night in London that has a following. So they've built their community around that thing. But then it's like if you have an artist within that who wants to just do their own thing, then suddenly, you know, we all know artists that have left big labels thinking, I'm going to go off and smash it, and suddenly like their infrastructure disappears, and it's tough. I
said that a lot about this social media generation, the people that, you know, you referenced earlier that skip that whole sort of, you know, doing the small shows and stuff. They don't, you know, I've mentioned it numerous times. I worry about those people, because if you haven't built a foundation, and then someone else comes in as the new social media like comedian or the social media content producer. Well, that's what it is these days, isn't it? Like, there's numerous different ways of approaching it. But
this is part of the thing as you getting a bit older as well, is maybe realising that within drum and bass, it can be feel like a bit of a conveyor belt of transient fans who are into drum and bass from say 17 through to 25, and then it can sometimes feel like you're constantly trying to appeal to the newer generation of that thing, and then when they get like all of my mates, we all used to go out and listen to drum and bass. None of them listen to drum and bass anymore. The kids, blokes I went to school with and college with and uni with, none of them listen to it anymore. They might stick on a mix when they're doing their job or whatever. They won't go out to drum and bass night anymore. They'll be going to like, I don't know, something totally different. So that is part of the sort of the trappings of drum and bass, is that you often feel like you're just trying to cultivate and appeal to a younger generation that will then move on. So you're having to stay relevant all the time. That's where you look at someone like Caliber, who in recent years has really taken control of his the way he gigs and the way he releases music. And it's kind of admirable. He's obviously a unique case in the sense that he knows who his fans are now. You know, there are younger people that have found him recently, but he's got a lot of people my age and maybe even a bit older who want to be in bed by midnight, want to go to Coco, would happily go to Coco and see him and this amazing visual artist he works with and pay 35 quid. And then go home, you know, and they don't want to go and see Calibre on a lineup with anybody else because they're not interested in the idea of being in a room with loads of kids.
Yep.
So he's just like cultivated his audience. They're over there.
The hard ticket show, innit?
Yeah, exactly. And he's probably like a unique. He's obviously very unique in the way that he's managed to do that. There's not many people that could do that. But if I could do that, that's what I'd be doing.
Yeah.
I think you could do that.
Not certainly. Well, I like the idea that you could just go. This is when I'm going to do shows, and I'm not going to be on the circuit anymore. I'm just going to be available all the time.
You got a lot more time to get to. Like, you know, he's a bit older.
I don't mean that as like an aspirational. I wish I could do what Caleb's doing. I just mean like more gigging on your own terms, even if they were all smaller. Even if it was like you don't get to play 1,000 cap venue because you're playing it on your own. You play like a 200 or 300 cap. But then you get into that conversation again about, well, do they exist and is the production there for what you want to do? And do you know what I mean? There's a lot of...
They'll find out in Workforce episode 3. I remember a podcast in a year's time, most probably, because I feel like we could just chat.
AC in this fucking room for that one.
We could literally chat forever, man.
Should we wrap it? Because it is getting a bit hot and sweaty now. And I think we've only got about 10 minutes of recording time left.
It's every single time we knew that it was going to go on for hours and hours. Cause,
love to everyone and thank you for having me.
Yeah,
just
man can chat. Even without Jon, we managed to record for over 2 hours. It's impressive. But yeah, no, thanks so much for coming on, as always. Big up on the album or LP.
Collection of music.
It should be out now by the time this comes out, I think. Nothing is sacred.
So I hope you're all enjoying the distorted version that came out.
We should try and time it so it comes out like just after the release of that, really, shouldn't we?
So that's on the 7th. It's just like I'm just dropping it out of nowhere.
The 7th of March.
Yeah, so I'm just building a load of assets around that now to just... Yeah. It's basically just attention-seeking bullshit, to be honest. But
I like
Love
it.
it.
Yeah. No, it's not.
Good. It sounds good fun. It's good fun.
It's more. It's not so much about attention. It's so much as it is about a conversation and just being a bit more provocative.
It's intriguing, man. It's genuinely intriguing.
I like it. I think it's a really good talking point. It's something completely different. I think it's a fantastic idea.
I think it's one of them ones like, you know, when... I think I just like the idea of deconstruction as well. You know, when you're like happy with something and you go, I'm really happy with that record. What happens if I just make it sound terrible though? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm from that background.
I've spent like 6 months trying to not make it sound terrible.
Yeah, I think there's some catharsis there as well.
100%.
Like,
sadism.
You know, when you worked on a project like a year ago and you were really attached to it, and then you just discover like the bounce that you did in some folder. And you go, actually, fuck, that's really good. Like, why didn't I manage to finish that when I did it before? And you can go in and treat every element that's there with a bit less respect. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean to get it over the line. You're not so bogged down in all the things that stopped you from being able to finish it before. So you can just go in and get it done. I've done that loads of times with tunes. They've sometimes turned out to be the best ones I've done. But what about the inverse of that is also true in the sense of, not the inverse, but just like pushing it on, which is why I thought, what would it be like to just release like an unlistenable version of these tunes? Why not? Like, I told my mum about it. She went, your fans are going to hate you. They're all going to leave you. They're going to desert you.
Nah.
You want to make sure you're not taking the piss out of your fans, Jack. This is your job after all. And I'm like, if anyone takes it like that, I'm sorry, but that's not the intention. It's not the intention to take the piss out of anybody. It's just like...
I think it's going to be received really, really well.
Same.
Do you know what? A weird example of this, when I was working in artist management, I worked for Industry Standard, who were managing Zomboy at the time, and he did this thing. It was a really good idea from one of the team, was to do they called it the Rick roll, and basically it was like they had a build up to one of his tunes, and as it just dropped into that "Never Gonna Give You," yeah, literally. So it was like, and everyone was like expecting it to be like, oh, sick new tune, and then literally bang like that, and it went nuts, like something that's like.
Do you know what?
For a bit of fun.
Someone actually said to me like, but why are you doing this? And I said, well, everyone's already on the internet behaving like a penis, so why not do it in like a sort of a thought-provoking way, not just like a childish meme type way, you know, like
it fits. It's it does
the
fit.
cynical, moany
Yeah, it
prick.
does.
Yeah,
It
have
fits,
that.
man. Yeah, it fits.
Yeah.
I like it. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah,
That's the social clip.
When my mum said that about, you're going to do this to your fans, they're not going to, it's not going to make sense. And I just went, I think I had to say, Mum, I'm not Jackson Pollock yet, but could you imagine if Jackson Pollock was saying he's going to chuck some paint all over the floor and all over this canvas, and he doesn't really know why it's like the purest expression of like human movement and like paint and medium and all this sort of shit. Someone like you came in and went, I don't think anyone's going to understand that. You're going to alienate all of
Sorry,
your...
Mr. Pollock.
Yeah. All of your, I liked it when you were painting portraits. What's all this, Mr. Pollock? What the fuck? And I just think... I think that's what I mean. This is like the extreme end of like being brave and trying to challenge people. I just think like people need to be asking questions and like prompted to ask questions. And even if people think it's fucking stupid, I'm not professing to say this is like some incredible artistic, voyage into the unknown. It's just like I spent 20 minutes distorting all the records to fuck. And then I spent 20 minutes...
I did hear Banksy mentioned earlier. Music's DMB's answer to Banksy right here.
I just think like the thing, it's kind of like, what would you call it, the thing that he did? It's a bit more performative in the sense that it's like, auctioned off for some crazy money, and then suddenly as soon as the gavel goes down, it shreds itself.
Yeah.
It's like the message in that. I'm not a big Banksy fan, but I remember seeing.
I think it's amazing.
Gangster, like
I thought that one was
sick.
in particular very clever.
Yeah.
Very.
I think loads of
to
shit
be honest,
does
the actual gangster thing to do would be to only give the DSPs the really distorted version, and then only make available the proper version.
That would be mad.
That would be the gang.
That would
be
really
like the
kick up
whole
a
hog
storm
version.
as well.
But then ultimately, this is again the balance. It's like I do get paid by the DSPs.
Yeah.
So like, don't shit where you eat, sort of thing.
Yeah. Don't bite the hand that
it's
feeds.
It's so difficult because if more people took the purest view of no, fuck you, I'm going to do what's right, principled view, they probably wouldn't exist. And I think in Britain we are guilty of this, of like just allowing shit to like trudge on and be as it is, even though we all inherently know there's a problem with it.
We're apathetic as fuck in this.
Apathetic, exactly. Yeah. Whereas actually, if more people were like principled and said, you know what, that's fucked up, I don't want to do that. Even though, like I said earlier, I don't have a problem particularly with Spotify as a model. I just do have a problem with their practices. Even if I saw Omunit again just took all of his music off Spotify, and fair play to him. Maybe his stuff isn't like. There's a lot of musicians whose music isn't made for DSPs.
Yeah.
I know that if I just made underground drum and bass, I wouldn't care about taking it off there because you're not really getting paid. But every now and then, if you make one that you know is going to go into those playlists that middle-aged women in the bath listen to, like the one I made with Tyler, I just know that tune's going to pay me in the long run.
Yeah.
Because it's that sort of tune that transient non-drum and bass fans will only listen to on that platform. If I was only releasing like weird setting traps type tunes, I'd just do them on vinyl, like limited to 100 downloads. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you sort of have to play the game. It's just the way it is, isn't it? It's just to end on an optimistic, positive note.
Play the game.
What a lovely note to end on.
And slow cook yourself in a podcast studio in the Hong Kong of London.
Yeah, we need to remember to do an aircon check and run back downstairs.
Actually,
it's
be done
bad.
along with the SSD
But yeah,
next time.
big ups for coming on. Thank you so much. Like I said, I'm sure we'll do another one at some point. Thank you to everyone for listening. Big up our Patreons. If you want to come join the party. Exclusive episodes, all that jazz. Like, comment, share. Big ups for the support. See you next time. Safe.
Peace.